from here to here is bad guys. If you see guys out, like, it's bad guys. There's no friendly Iraqi police. There's no friendly Iraqi army. There's none of us. If you see someone armed, it's a bad guy. Kill it. We were one of the most decorated teams at that time in 10th Special Forces Group. And because we did so well and we turned it around, we were basically the main effort for the 2007 rotation. But we started prepping for Iraq and we were just like, oh man, this is our opportunity. This is our shot. Stumble, bumble right into this Al-Qaeda training camp, L-shaped ambush, and all hell breaks loose. Things increase drastically, like the level of violence and the retaliation. Because when you're asking guys for something like this, like to go into a known gunfight and all hell's breaking loose, the 101st guys, they do need some help. Are you guys down to go back and help them? I'm down. And every man that was there was like, yeah, hell yeah, let's do it.
Ladies and gentlemen, as always, it's both an honor and a pleasure to welcome my next guest to the podcast. He is a retired Master Sergeant, Green Beret. He's a recipient of 5 Bronze Star medals, which I don't even know how you fit all the clusters on there. One with Valor, Larry Thorne Award for Outstanding Operational Detachment with 10th Special Forces Group, and the Robert T. Frederick Award for Military Excellence. He's the author of Grit to Glory, a Green Beret's journey from West Virginia to the streets of Baghdad. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the stage, Darrell Utt. I assume that your last name is pronounced Utt, but it's just straight up Utt, huh?
Utt,
yeah.
That's it. Yeah, it's great to be here, Mike.
Yeah, thanks for coming, man. I appreciate it. I know you're relatively local, but
I am.
I know you're a busy guy, and I appreciate you taking the time to tell your story and share it with the folks at home, because these types of stories and timelines of guys with careers like yours are always fascinating, and I think they're important to communicate to the outside world kind of what has taken place on behalf of Uncle Sam.
I agree.
What's the last full book that you read?
Last full book, I think you're going to enjoy this one because I think we know this person really well. Echo and Ramadi.
Oh, yeah.
I just finished reading
Scott's book.
Yeah, Scott Husing. Just read Echo and Ramadi, was blown away, and sent him a few messages while I was reading it.
Yeah.
Especially like that introduction chapter where he lost a Marine, and he called the parents, and it's like, man, that was tough. But what a great book that was.
Yeah, it's a phenomenal book. He's a great dude too, and he's pretty local here too now.
Yeah.
What's something you wish you were better at?
Something I wish, there's probably a lot I could list. I always regretted during my Special Forces career not being a better language guy.
Oh, really?
I was a language rock, because I initially, I had my heart set on going to 5th Special Forces Group with, which was their focus was in the Middle East. And, they have a lot of guys that speak Arabic. So when I went through the whole language testing and all of those things, like my scores weren't that high. And I didn't end up going to 5th group. I ended up going to 10th group. Had an easier language, German, but still to me, that was like Mandarin Chinese. Yeah. So, failed miserably at the language things and always regretted that. Wish that I was one of those guys that could just pick it up. I worked with a lot of dudes that had multiple languages that were really smooth, really good, and I was never that dude.
Yeah. German to me, it sounds angry all the time. Like, no matter what the fuck they say, it sounds like they're yelling at somebody.
Yeah.
I don't know what it is, but...
yeah, for sure.
Yeah. If time travel were possible, where and when would you go and why?
Yeah. Man, I've thought about this one. I remember growing up, my dad always used to talk about that he wished he could go back to like the old West kind of days. So I remember him talking about that a lot, but I think for me, like one of the most significant events that happened probably during our lifetime was 9/11. And I think it would be interesting to be able to go back before 9/11 happened and maybe be one of those guys that could work to prevent it. Yeah. I think that would be a badass way. And I think someone else had already said that on one of your previous podcasts, but that was the one that really jumped out at me, was like, man, what could we do? Because it wasn't like those guys were, that badass. I mean, they made a lot of mistakes. They were sloppy. I wish that we could clean that up and prevent some of that.
Yeah, it's hard to imagine, and obviously it's impossible to do so, but what the world would be like if it had been prevented, I mean, like you talk about changing the course of history. I mean, you could say the same, like if you had assassinated Hitler before he came to power, like it's just, those types of pivotal moments in our world's history, and that, I think the CIA in the 80s called it the blowback effect, but it's like dropping a pebble in a still lake, like the ripple effect to how far it reaches. One thing that can completely change the course of humanity is remarkable. But I agree.
For that question, though, I thought it was interesting. I read mostly a lot of nonfiction, but my wife got me a book not that long ago. It was from Stephen King, which I'm not a Stephen King guy. That's not like my genre that I get into, but he wrote a book. I don't know if you've heard of it. It's 11/22/63. It's about the JFK assassination. And it's exactly someone that's able to do the time travel and to try to go back and to prevent the JFK assassination.
Oh, wow.
It's an interesting read. I'm going to go back to what I normally read after, I checked it all out, but it was interesting.
Yeah.
Because I think he thought that things were going to change. And then once he was able to kind of put his twist on it, it really made things a lot worse. So,
yeah.
Hey guys, I want to take a minute to tell you about the Mic Drop Patreon, where you can get the real mic drop experience the way it's meant to be seen. You get completely uncensored, unfiltered, and uncut episodes with nothing held back, just raw, real conversations directly from me to you, without YouTube censorship. Plus, you'll see it days before anyone else, with early premieres and exclusive bonus content that you won't find anywhere else. You get behind-the-scenes access to the show, including pre- and post-show footage, with me and the guest both in studio and on location, depending on what the guest is into and what we have going on. On top of that, we've got tons of Patreon-only perks, mic drop swag, access to exclusive merch, and the chance to submit your questions to be asked at the end of every episode. You'll also get a sneak peek at our upcoming guests, so you'll know who's in the studio weeks before anyone else. We're constantly releasing new features and dropping new content based on what you want to see. For our top tier members, you get the same Mic Drop Challenge coin that all of my guests receive from the upcoming show, which will never ever be for sale. We've got quarterly merch that's sent out directly to you, a monthly Zoom call with me where we talk about whatever you guys want to talk about, and an active group chat where we all shoot the shit on a daily basis. All of that for just a few bucks a month to support the show. Right now, we're also offering a 10% discount off an annual subscription, which means that you get more than a free month. I want to say thank you to everyone who has already signed up. Your support means that we get to keep bringing you the content that you love. So if you haven't yet, hit the link in the description or go to patreon.com/micdrop and join the team. I'll see you guys in there. Thank you.
I have 4 dogs, and they've eaten all types of different food. And we recently found Team Dog, I believe this spring. So we've been on it for a year. Seeger was on it first, and Tiller was on it, and then we put the Goldens on it. And I mean, all the dogs eat less food. The dogs' coats are way better. Everything about Team Dog is, I'm very impressed. My dog trainer, Justin Allen, he uses it on all 60 dogs that are there for training. He's tried every single food in the game too, and they just stay super healthy on this Team Dog.
Do you think that we'll get the JFK files with Trump back in office?
Man, I hope so.
Yeah.
I hope so. And I wonder, what's going to happen if they do release the JFK assassination files, because, they got an airport Dulles that he might be implicated into the whole thing, potentially.
Yeah.
The Hoover building, FBI, there's potential implications there.
Yeah.
The 6th floor museum, Dealey Plaza, I think that's all bullshit, personally. I think there was multiple shooters. I don't know if you've ever seen the assassination, like in, what is it, 4D or 4K or whatever, where it's the enhanced.
Yeah.
To me, it looks like, one of those shots, at least one of those shots was from the front.
Yeah.
But I think our government needs to have that like disinfected, that cleaning of, hey, we did this and let's maybe move forward and acknowledge it instead of just kind of sweeping it under the rug.
Yeah.
What do you think? You think they're going to release it?
I mean, I hope so. Similarly, I think my assumption is that, people even at the highest level that, are all for transparency and releasing things, depending on how corrupt it is or who it implicates. And again, kind of that ripple effect of what it may, from a domino effect standpoint, initiate. They may not, depending on how high it goes. I think that's probably why you haven't seen the Epstein list get released, is because there's so many powerful people on there that have the power to keep it, stifled, but also that there's probably other people that worry that, our entire government will fucking collapse because there's so many names on it. I mean, because to me, it's like, why else wouldn't it have been?
Yeah.
You could argue the same thing with, the Trump assassination attempt shooter. Like, we still know fuck all about that guy. His body was cremated days after, and it's like there's been several investigations. There's been no reports, no findings, no updates. And it's like, well, why is that? And when you look at some of the correlations of where his cell phone location wise were at, how many times, like government buildings, and just like, man, this shit's pretty fucking. I mean, it's like something out of a movie.
It's dirty.
But it doesn't. Yeah, it doesn't pass the fucking sniff test. That's for sure.
And I think for the Trump assassination, that kid, a lot of people that may disagree that there was some kind of conspiracy there. They're like, hey, this was some high school kind of geek kid, that wasn't that good of a shot. And it's like, well, actually, if you kind of look at that, like, he's the perfect candidate. Do you think that they're going to roll out some, ex-Navy SEAL sniper guy, or, like he's just so gray and not very obvious.
I mean, to me, either way, right? Is it even if he's linked to foreign governments or, irrespective of who he is and what his background is, just release it then. It's like, if you have nothing to hide and he's just a nobody, then give us the background on him. Like, why hasn't that been done?
I think they just feel like they can't, we just can't handle things as a population. Like, they just can't handle it. Yeah.
I mean, I suspect it's dirtier, or not dirtier. It's more calculated than that. I think it's more because of how high up it goes, that it would rattle the institution that our entire government is founded upon, because if you look at how corrupt some of our, whether it's the Department of Justice or FBI, not in its entirety before everybody gets their panties in a twist.
Right. Some good people over there.
But there are people in very high positions at all the institutions within the United States government that fucking hate Trump, and would stop at nothing. Looking at some of the text threads back in the day of saying, we'll prevent him from being elected, or reelected. And, it's just like, that's what I think. I think that it goes so far up that, it would completely unravel the public's trust in our government and could lead to some pretty serious consequences. I think it's more of that than them just saying they don't think we can handle it. I mean, that's my take. But
yeah.
Do you have a favorite quote?
Favorite quote? I do. I think this defines me really well because I'm not a talented guy and I've never been a talented guy. Hard work beats talent when talent doesn't work hard. And I know that's, you've heard that one a lot, but that really resonates with me because I think that is me. That's my upbringing. That's who I am. That's still who I am.
Yeah.
Always that guy that's just a work in progress that's trying to get a little bit better. But that one's always resonated with me.
Yeah. That's awesome. EDC wise, you live in Texas. I'm assuming you carry.
Yeah.
What do you carry?
I carry a little 45, a little PT 745 Pro, little Taurus. And And actually, I have my best friend's a GRS guy, so it was a hand me down from him. He's like, "Hey, this is not bad," and he transitioned to something else, sexier.
Yeah.
So I'm probably gonna update it at some point, but that's what I roll with now.
Can I ask why 45? Is it just because it was a hand me down, or do you prefer
I think it was just a hand me down because I was always a 9mm guy.
Yeah.
As a Green Beret. Even when there was a lot of other guys that favor the 45, but just a hand me down.
Yeah.
I'm not a huge gun guy, to be honest. Yeah.
Morning routine wise, what time do you get up, and what do the first 3 hours look like?
Well, it's a little different for me because I'm not I don't have a full-time job at the moment. I'm focused more on the book and marketing and promoting and social media and all those things. But I typically wake up around 6 because that's when my wife wakes up. She's a remote employee of the Museum of the Bible. So she gets up at 6 and she gets on the computer. Well, actually, it's a little bit before 6, but she gets up, gets her day started. So that's about when I get my day started and drink some coffee. I'm in my first week, man, of doing a coffee transition. I was one of those, I'm embarrassed to say this. I was one of those foo-foo coffee drinkers, man. I love creamer.
Yeah.
Had transitioned over to like the sugar-free, fat-free, French vanilla, hazelnut, all the foo-foo stuff. But I'm in my first week of drinking black coffee, so I'm going strong. But I typically, I wake up, I enjoy some coffee, and I've been hitting social media pretty hard just because I'm trying to get my name out there. I'm trying to get the book out there. I'm seeing a lot of traction on LinkedIn.
Yeah.
And I know that's probably not that popular in the business side, or
I think it still is. I mean, I don't mess around on it much, but
yeah,
I know it's still relevant.
Yeah, definitely still relevant. I'm seeing a lot of opportunities from LinkedIn and DMs and people that I don't even really realize that are reading my stuff or looking at my stuff or following. Last year I got someone from Bank of America reached out and said, "Hey, would love to have you come and do a fireside chat down in San Antonio for Bank of America and Merrill Lynch." I was blown away. I was like, "I'd love to do that. Just curious, like, how'd you find me?" And she's like, "I just see all your stuff on LinkedIn. You do a lot of leadership stuff, and I see some of your speaking photos and all that." And I was like, "Awesome."
Yeah, shit, that's cool.
Yeah. So yeah, I spend a lot of time on LinkedIn and social media. I typically do a little bit of reading in the morning. And then I hit the gym.
Yeah. Are you a CrossFit guy, traditional lift?
I wish. Right now, I'm pretty much a treadmill guy. I think that just kind of clears me up mentally.
Yeah.
But I'm really working hard, trying to get like 3 to 4 days of weights in there just to kind of do some muscle.
Yeah. Hey, man. What's a totally irrational fear that you have?
Totally irrational fear that I have? Man, I do not like snakes. I don't like snakes. I don't like spiders. I got bit by brown recluse back in, was it 1995 at Fort Campbell, Kentucky. I was in pre-ranger and, actually I still have a huge ass scar right there because they had to slice it up to let it drain. And, so spiders, snakes, and, I think I must have developed this as I got older, but claustrophobic, dude.
Really?
Man, like having to get the scans or what is that machine?
Like a CT scan?
Yeah, the CT scans
or
and stuff like that. Man, I do not like that. I have to be like medicated to get that shit.
Get the fuck out, really?
Man, I hate it.
Yeah.
I hate it.
It's when I think about the first time I ever heard about a Green Beret was the lieutenant colonel and Rambo talking about eat stuff to make a billy goat puke and whatever. Then to hear a real one talk about being scared of snakes and spiders in small places is kind of humorous.
Yeah, man.
The claustrophobia thing is new. Like it wasn't.
Yeah, I don't think that bothered me before.
Yeah.
It didn't bother me before that I recall. But yeah, it's something I do not care for.
Have you seen the there's this story of a hiker that crawled down into this like rock.
You got stuck?
Crevice thing, and it like bends down and then goes like this. And yeah, he got stuck face first. And when they show like the side profile of the crevice, like I'm not claustrophobic and it makes my asshole pucker.
Oh, yeah.
But the dude,
I couldn't even see that, man. It would freak me out.
yeah, I
probably.
mean, he spent like several days in there and ended up dying of a heart attack, but was caught. Like they tied rope to his feet and tried to drag him out. Like he was so jammed in there that he couldn't move for several days and fucking died. Yeah, I mean, it's just, like I said, that stuff doesn't bother me, but seeing that, I was just like putting myself in that position, like, man, that's fucking horrible.
Dude, with everything that happened in Israel and Hamas and the hostages, and they're putting them in the tunnels and there's no sunlight and all that, it's just like,
yeah,
that's really made me think a lot about that. It's like, man, fuck that.
Yeah, it's bad news. You're originally from West Virginia.
Yeah.
Right? What was your childhood like?
Yeah, originally from Huntington, West Virginia. Had a tough upbringing. I think that's probably a little bit common in the special operations community.
Well, I'm an exception to that for sure.
Oh, you had a great upbringing?
I did. I mean, it wasn't like super wealthy, but just super supportive parents. They're still married. They never fight. 2 older brothers, younger sister. We all got along. Like none of us got into big trouble. I mean, it's like fucking Leave It to Beaver at my house. And which I didn't realize was rare until like junior high, spending the night at other kids' houses and like their dad's sleeping on the couch and the mom's motherfucking them from the other room, breaking shit. And it's just like, what the
Yeah.
But
Yeah. I was the baby in the family. I had an older sister, had an older brother. Early on, come from humble beginnings in West Virginia.
like, how humble are we talking?
Poor. I mean, both of my parents worked. We had a house. We moved around a lot, but and we had food and all of those things. But I wore hand-me-downs, and we weren't, fine dining for us was like, hey, we're going to go to McDonald's drive-through or something like that. We didn't go to sit-down restaurants and eat like that. That wasn't our family.
Yeah. Siblings?
Yeah. I had an older brother, older sister. But the thing, I appreciate my upbringing because it made me who I am now. Because tough, hard work, be humble, don't quit. That's kind of how I grew up. So I appreciated that. But thankfully, my dad was super supportive. My dad was an alcoholic early on, and that was an abusive relationship because of all the drinking that he did. So him and my mom were constantly fighting when I was young. And then he got sober, and he became better. And he was very involved with me growing up playing sports. My sister and brother, my older sister and older brother, they were, they did band, and my brother was really smart academically. So I think he just channeled all of his energy because I was doing the things that he did when he was younger. So I got a little bit more attention because I did play football, basketball, baseball.
Yeah.
My mom was really abusive. I think she, as a little girl, that's how she grew up. Her mom and dad would beat her ass, primarily her mom, which was my grandmother. And then, of course, she had to deal with my dad when he was going through his whole alcohol issue. And then she had a job. She worked with mental health patients, and she would constantly come home with bumps and bruises from fighting with those folks. So
tough gal.
Tough gal. And I think she took that out on us. My sister got the brunt of that one. But I've always said, my dad helped me turn into a man and showed me some of those manly things. But I really feel like I got my mental toughness from my mom because she was just a tough lady.
Yeah. Wow. Were there any, traumatic events or significant events in your childhood that really were catalysts or pivotal moments that shaped your path in terms of motivating you to join the service? Or just in general?
Nothing traumatic.
I guess we're just even significant, that stand out as being exceptionally memorable.
No, I don't think of anything like that. I mean, it was definitely a tough upbringing, but I don't think it was like, I've heard some other people like talk about their upbringing, and I didn't go through anything like that.
Yeah. So it's more collective.
More collective, for
Yeah.
sure.
What was the catalyst that you decided you wanted to join the military?
Yeah, actually, there was a couple of things, because my dad had mentioned, hey, no one in our family's ever served in the Marine Corps. And, we had, like, my dad's dad had served, and all of the brothers, his uncles, they'd all served in World War II and all of that. So that was kind of like the first time I got intrigued, was when my dad said, and I don't know, I'd love to be able to ask him. Both my mom and dad are deceased now, but I'd love to be able to go back and say, hey, man, were you kind of planting that seed just to kind of intrigue me and, kind of give me a light push? But he had mentioned, hey, no one in our family had ever joined the Marines. So that intrigued me, because I was like, man, I could be the first one in the Utt family to be a Marine. So that definitely caught my attention. And then I had a football coach, a high school football coach, Carl Thornburg. I've spoken a lot about him, and he's in my book. He was a 19th Group National Guard Special Forces Sergeant Major.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. So little did I know it at the time, though, as a kid, from ninth grade to my senior year, he ran our football team kind of like a special forces team. I didn't know it, obviously, because I didn't know anything about it. But later on, I'd be like, man, he ran our football team like a special forces team. Cool. So that was a huge influence. But I wanted to join the Marines. I tried to join the Marines, had a little issue.
What kind of little issue are we talking about?
Yeah, I had a little issue. So I started talking to the Marines, and that's what I wanted to do. I was one of those kids in high school. I had the Marine Corps sticker on the back of my car, man. I thought it was a big deal. I was wearing the recruiting T-shirts, thinking I was the guy. And my dad had told me, he's like, hey, why don't you, if you're going to do this, join the service, which I support. Why don't you try to get a skill out of it? And I was like, okay. I didn't really know what I wanted to do, though, at 17. I had the slightest idea. And somehow I thought it would be a good idea to join the Marines and be an air traffic controller.
Yeah.
That's what I thought would, hey, it's a skill.
Yeah.
Then my dad was like, hey, you do the air traffic controller, you go do 3 or 4 years, you get out, you have the college money, you have a skill, you can go do this job, and you're going to be set.
Yeah.
And I was like, okay, that's what I'll do. So little did I know at the time, you had to be a little bit smart to be an air traffic controller. And I wasn't a smart kid, I admit. But I did the ASVAB and talked to the Marine recruiter, and
were you
he's
an
like,
ASVAB waiver in the Army or what?
No. He was like, hey, you're good.
Oh, okay.
Everything's good. The Marine Corps recruiter. And then I got all the way up to MEPS in Beckley, West Virginia, Military Entrance Processing Station, and talked to the Marine up there. And he's the one that broke the news to me. He's like, hey, air traffic controller, huh? And I was like, yes, sir. Air traffic controller. He's like, son, but you don't have the scores to be an air traffic controller.
I love that. That's when they tell you that.
Right.
Yeah.
And I don't want to make it seem like I'm bashing on the Marine Corps, because I love the Marine Corps. I love all the branches. And I mean, anybody that wants to put their name on the dotted line and sign up to serve this great country of ours, you got my respect. And I love my Marine Corps brothers, but just for me, it didn't work out.
Yeah.
I had a bad experience.
So, how do you go from being at MEPS, coming in, and him saying, yeah, you can't do air traffic? I mean, how do you get out of that?
So I had a cyst. I had a cyst in my left wrist. I think it's like a ganglion cyst or something like that. Actually, I still have it. But so I didn't have the scores. And then he was pushing me. He was heavy on the, hey, okay, you can't be an air traffic controller, but how bad do you want to be a Marine?
0300 sounds pretty fucking good.
No, it was open.
Oh, okay.
He said, how bad do you want to be a Marine? I was like, sir, I want to be a Marine bad. He goes, okay, I have an open contract. I was like, well, I don't know what that means. He said, well, you want to be a Marine, right? You just told me you did. And I said, yes, sir, I want to be a Marine. And he said, well, you'll join the Marines and then you'll go to Paris Island and then they'll tell you what job you're going to do.
That sounds fun.
Yeah, that sounds pretty. Yeah. So meanwhile, in the background, the medical people, they found this cyst and they're like, hey, there's an issue here with the cyst. So I finally had a chance, and I asked him, I said, hey, my dad said if there's any issues for me to call him, I'd like to go call my dad. And he finally let me go talk to my dad and talk to him on the phone. And my dad was like, hey, this isn't a good idea. And he goes, I know you want to join the Marines. You got your heart set on it. But this open contract basically means they could make you a cook on a Navy ship.
Yeah.
Would you like to do that? He knew the answer. I was like, that would be terrible. That would be the worst thing in the world. Yeah. He said, you need to tell them no, that your dad said, absolutely not.
Yeah.
But before I went back in there, the medical people, it had all like kind of crossed his desk and got processed. And it was like, hey, if you do want to join the Marines, you need to go get this thing removed from your wrist, get a clean bill of health, and you can come back up and we can talk again.
Yeah. Wow.
And that allowed me the freedom
to
kind of step away from the Marine Corps. After I got a little bit of time to process it and think about it, I was like, I kind of didn't really appreciate getting lied to like that. It was kind of shitty.
Yeah. Yeah, it absolutely is.
And that allowed me to go talk to the Army recruiter.
Shitty, but also not surprising.
Yeah, it's a business, they're numbers.
Well, especially then, it was the 80s, late 80s.
Yeah.
Yeah. So what was the time between when that happened and you actually joining the Army? And did they have to give you a waiver for the cyst, or they just didn't give a shit?
No, I actually had surgery. It was like a little quick surgery type thing. Got the cyst removed and then talked to the Army. I think this is maybe the fall of 89. And then I graduated high school in 1990, like May or June, May of 1990, and then joined the Army. I was down to Fort Benning, Georgia, in July 24th of 1990.
Yeah. And was that for regular infantry contract?
Yeah, regular infantry contract.
Yeah. So you go in under infantry. What was the process between that and then ultimately selection and getting into the Green Berets?
Yeah. So started out my career as an infantry guy. Went through basic and AIT. I was stationed at Fort Ord, California. Didn't realize how good that was, being out in Monterey, California. That was my first duty station.
Yeah.
So I spent some time Monterey, Fort Lewis, Washington, Fort Campbell, Kentucky. So I think I might have been it was probably around 5 or 6 years. And then a light bulb kind of went off, and it was like, hey, I think I'd really like to do something else. I was starting to get a little bit more confident, in my abilities, physically, mentally, all those type of things. So I did 5 or 6 years. I was a staff sergeant.
Did you deploy to Desert Storm?
I did not deploy to Desert Shield, Desert Storm. I thought I was going to, but we were light infantry out of 7th ID. So
turns out the Air Force shut the door and we don't need you guys.
Yeah, they didn't need us. So yeah, didn't do that. But spent about 5 or 6 years in, got the confidence. I was exposed to 5th Special Forces Group when I was at Fort Campbell. And I think that's when it really kind of hit like, man, I really like seeing what these guys are doing. I don't know much about it. They're kind of the secret special guys, but I was really intrigued by it because they weren't doing stuff like we were doing in the infantry, wearing helmets and Ranger body armor and all this gear and doing all the crazy stuff that we were doing. It seemed like they were doing it the smart, efficient way. And I was intrigued by that. So I went to selection in the fall of 96. I've been in 6 years.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Expectation versus reality going through selection. Was it what you thought it would be?
It was tough, man.
What was the toughest part?
The toughest part for me, Special Forces assessment and selection, I still remember it like it was yesterday. We were doing something called sand babies. And, we always had our ruck on.
That sounds racist, by the way.
Yeah, that's what it was called, man. Sand babies. And I forgot the exact scenario that we had to, because they always kind of like make the scenario sound a lot sexier, There was one thing, it's like, hey, you're going to carry this down pilot. And it was like you had a litter and a big duffel bag full of sand. It's like, damn, this Air Force pilot's like, seems like he weighs 500 pounds, bro.
Motherfucker needs to diet.
Yeah. But for sand babies, I forgot what the scenario was, but we were supposed to be moving weights or whatever. But we had our rucksack on, and then we had a starting point. And we'd fill the sandbags, put the sandbags on our back, and then we had to walk so many hundreds of meters, and they had these little rises, and then we'd drop the sandbags, and we'd come back and start it all over again. And just carrying those sand babies, and then going over those little, even though those hills, it wasn't like it was a huge ass mountain or anything. But I literally felt like the bones in my legs were going to go through my feet. It was one of the most painful things. And I was like, man, is this thing ever going to stop? Is it ever going to end? How many sandbags do we have to carry to complete this? That was part of team week. So that was, the last week of Special Forces assessment selection. But that kicked my ass.
Yeah.
Kicked my ass.
Yeah. Made it all the way through first time?
Made it all the way through the first time. And I've thought about this a lot, man. I've thought about this with Special Force assessment selection and Ranger School. It's like, man, if I wouldn't have made it the first time, how would I have been going back? Because, that training just sucked. I have a lot of respect, man, for the people that get recycled over and over, or they go all the way through selection. They're 21-day non-selects, and then they have to go back. Sometimes they go back for a third. It's like, holy shit, bro. You went through that 2 or 3 times. I want you on my team. If you're a badass dude.
Yeah. No, I mean, I remember working with guys who'd been through Hell Week multiple times, one guy had been through it 3 times.
Did you go through your first?
Yeah, sort of. I mean, I made it all the way to 6 days before San Clemente Island, which is the last 5-week portion of BUDS, which is 6.5 months long. And I pinched my sciatic nerve a few weeks prior to that doing land nav, and it was significant enough to where I failed everything. The swims, the runs, the O courses, everything. And ironically, swims were the first thing that I failed 3 of. Wow. Because I was a competitive swimmer all growing up. I could have gone to college for it, and I was a good swimmer, but I couldn't pass anything. And for me, I thought about going to medical and seeing if they would medically roll me, because they're a little more lenient with that than they are a performance role. But ultimately, I was just like, man, I'm just going to try. But I couldn't pass anything. So I ended up getting rolled. So I was in class 214 to start, and then graduated with 215, classed up with the next class. And at that point I was healed up and passed everything and
wow,
whatever. But
respect.
Yeah. I mean, it was tough. I mean, even just redoing 5 weeks of third phase, it's not pleasant, and knowing I got to go do land nav again and all the conditioning runs and just everything, that first half of third phase wasn't my favorite. But all right, so once you get into you went with 10th group, right? Is that that was your first duty station with
Yeah. Went through Special Force assessment selection and went to airborne school, went through the qualification course, and then was assigned. Actually, I was very fortunate. I was assigned to Stuttgart, Germany. I was a forward deployed battalion. 1st Battalion, 10th Group. And that was I got there in the fall of 1998.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
There's a note about you working a little bit with SEAL teams in Kosovo. Is that right?
Yeah. So I did, thought that was an interesting little chapter in my career, because right when I got to 1st Battalion, it was a good time to be a new guy. Because we were, the air war is like, hey, are we going to bomb Serbia? No, we're not going to bomb them. We're going to negotiate. We're doing political, solutions, all that type of stuff. So it was like we were constantly like a little 911 force. We would get staged in San Vito, Italy, and it was just kind of fun. It was interesting for a new guy to be there during that time period. But once the air war was over, I was part of the first company, Special Forces company, that went in to Kosovo, got all that set up. But at one point, I think it was either later on in 2000 or maybe 2001. No. Yeah, it might have been 2001. But we had got a chance. It's like, hey, your team from 1st Battalion, 10th Group, your Special Forces team is going to go down to Kosovo, operating out of Camp Bondstill, which was the big Army base there. And you guys are going to start doing special reconnaissance on the border areas of Macedonia and Serbia and all that. And we learned that SEAL Team 2 had already been doing those missions. I think they had several months on us. And that was such a great experience for our team. And I think we were picked because our Special Forces team, most of our guys were all Ranger qualified. So, we were a Special Forces team. We had a lot of Ranger qualified dudes. And I guess in leadership's eyes, hey, these are the guys that could go down there and do this type of mission really well. But I always remember being very grateful to SEAL Team 2. They had a mature team.
You mean old?
They were older. They were an older team. What's the SEAL team? The lead NCO guy. Sorry, I don't remember what that was.
LPO.
Yeah, whatever the senior enlisted. Well, like Special Forces, it's the team sergeant, Master Sergeant EA.
Chief, probably. Then.
The chief. Yeah. Okay. This chief, man, he was shit hot.
Yeah.
Like he was shit hot. He'd been operating. He knew all this stuff. I wish I remembered his name just to give him a shout out, because he was a special guy. But they allowed us to go down there and operate with the SEALs, and they kind of took us under their wing. Because it was a new thing. We hadn't really done that. So, and during that time period, it was a big deal. It's kind of funny now when you think back, because I can take a picture of you right now and send it to halfway across the world, but during that time period, that was a big deal to be out, with a camera and a lens, and to take pictures of stuff and to send it back on the laptop or the tough book, that was a big deal, man.
Yeah.
And, those were some of the things that we were doing, but it was just a great experience to work with the guys from SEAL Team 2. Had just nothing but respect for those guys, and they didn't have to, do some of the things, but they really wanted us to be successful. And then when we would go out and do our missions, they would be our QRF, and we would do the same. So it was a good working relationship. And as that evolved, we saw the SEAL teams get a little bit younger. And they were a little bit, less mature, but they were still serious, switched on dudes, so.
Did you know that high blood pressure is one of the highest risk factors for mortality? In fact, 1 in 2 adults have high blood pressure. That is a 50-50 chance that you're a walking time bomb. However, you, not Big Pharma, can help take control of your blood pressure before it's too late. With 120 Life. 120 Life is a blend of great tasting superfruit juices that can actually help lower your blood pressure. 120 Life is formulated with ingredients that have been shown to naturally help control high blood pressure and are endorsed by thousands of health professionals. You can try it yourself risk-free with their 2-week trial pack. Just go to 120life.com and use the code DROP, all caps, all one word, DROP, to save 15% and receive free shipping. They are so sure that 120 Life can noticeably lower your blood pressure in 2 weeks that they'll give you your money back if you're not satisfied. 120 Life offers a risk-free trial with a full refund if you don't see lower numbers in 2 weeks. There's nothing to lose except your high blood pressure numbers. 120 Life is trusted by healthcare professionals, with hundreds of doctors recommending it to help manage blood pressure naturally. It's not just for high blood pressure. It's also helpful for those managing diabetes. 120 Life provides visible, measurable changes in blood pressure, and you can use a simple monitor at home to track your progress.
Thousands have benefited from 120 Life. It's a choice you can trust for your health. So you have nothing to lose but those high blood pressure numbers. Go to 120life.com. That's 120life.com. And remember to use the code DROP, D-R-O-P, to save 15%. This is serious. It's your life you're talking about. 120 Life can help. These statements have not been approved by the Food and Drug Administration. This product is not intended to diagnose, treat, cure, or prevent any disease.
Did you know that studies show that 80% of resolutions fail by February? You can beat the odds with Lumen and improve your wellness. Lumen is the world's first handheld metabolic coach. It's a device that helps measure your metabolism through your breath. And on the app, it'll tell you if it sees if you're burning fat or carbs and gives you tailored guidance to help improve your nutrition, workout, sleep, and even stress management. All you have to do is breathe into your Lumen first thing in the morning, and the Lumen can tell you what's going on with your metabolism, whether you're burning mostly fats or carbs. Then Lumen gives you a personalized nutrition plan for that day based on your measurements. You can also breathe into it before and after workouts and meals, so Lumen can tell you exactly what's going on with your body in real time, and Lumen will give you tips to keep you on top of your wellness game. Lumen was kind enough to send me a device to try out, and I got to tell you, to be able to have that integrated and customized plan on the fly throughout the day is a game changer. Having that type of control and knowing exactly what foods do what to your body is such a huge advantage when it comes to trying to work out, to recover, to be able to perform at your optimal level, and the technology behind it is truly remarkable. I can't thank them enough for sending me a device to try out and really be able to maximize the benefits of what I eat and what it does. Your metabolism is your body's engine. It's how your body burns and turns the food into fuel that keeps you going. Because your metabolism is at the center of everything your body does, optimal metabolic wellness translates to a bunch of benefits, including easier weight management, improved energy levels, better fitness results, better sleep, etc. Lumen gives you recommendations to help improve your metabolic wellness. It can also track your cycle as well as the onset of menopause and adjust your recommendations to keep your metabolism in good shape through hormonal shifts so you can keep up with your energy and stave off cravings for you ladies out there. Take the next step to helping improve your health. Go to lumen.me/mic drop to get 20% off your Lumen. That's lumen.me/mic drop for 20% off your purchase. Thank you to Lumen for sponsoring this episode. These statements and products have not been evaluated by the Food and Drug Administration. These products are not intended to diagnose, treat, cure, or prevent any disease or condition.
As you guys know, sleep is one of the most important aspects of good health. And, I train really hard, whether it's jiu-jitsu, weightlifting, etc. Also work hard, own several different businesses, the Warrior Dog Foundation, etc. I have found over the years that getting good sleep is more and more difficult. For me, it's predominantly waking up multiple times through the night, not being able to stay in deep sleep, until the kind folks at Beam sent me their powder, which enabled me to be able to sleep through the night, get much more deep, restful sleep, and I'm super appreciative of them for both working with us here on the show and sending me such a great product that has been able to revolutionize my ability to recover, get better sleep, and be more productive during the day. That's why I'm so excited to talk about Beam's Dream Powder, a science-backed nighttime blend for sleep that's actually clinically shown to improve sleep and have you waking up refreshed. Everything changed when I found Dream. It's clinically shown to help improve sleep, and let me tell you, it absolutely works. I finally started sleeping through the night, waking up refreshed, not groggy. With better sleep, my energy and focus has come completely back. I felt like I could actually tackle my days instead of just getting through them. Other sleep aids can cause next-day grogginess, but Dream contains a powerful all-natural blend of reishi, magnesium, L-theanine, apigenin, and melatonin to help you fall asleep, stay asleep, and wake up refreshed. Now, as I look ahead to 2025, I'm determined to keep this momentum going. Dream is a part of my nightly routine, and it's made all of the difference in the world. If you're like me and have struggled with sleep in the past year, there is no better way to start 2025 than with consistent, restful nights. Dream will help you feel your best every single day. The ultimate sleep refresh for the new year is to try Beam's best-selling Dream Powder and get up to 40% off with a limited time when you go to shopbeam.com/micdrop, all caps, all one word, and use the code micdrop at checkout. That's shopbeam, BEAM.com/micdrop, and use the code micdrop for up to 40% off.
I guess during that time, you guys would go out and they'd be the QRF and vice versa. Were there any combative tics or, for troops in contact or gunfights for those listening unfamiliar with the verbiage? Did you guys get into anything, or was it all just reconnaissance based?
We actually were engaged at one point, and I believe we were on the border of Macedonia when it happened. I don't remember. I think we might have, because it seemed like I did special reconnaissance like at least 2 or 3. It's like every single year we'd go down to Kosovo and do some type of special reconnaissance work, primarily in the summer. There was one mission that we did. It was kind of a hot area. They were doing some smuggling, like some weapons smuggling, suspected weapon smuggling. It was kind of a dicey area because, a lot of people don't really remember this time period because it was all pre 9/11. But that was really like the main thing that was going on, was in the Balkans, Serbia and Kosovo and all that stuff. And then, of course, 9/11 happened and everybody forgot that like this. And everybody focused on Iraq and Afghanistan. But a lot of people don't remember, like the amount of landmines in those countries. Like the whole place was littered with mines and things like that. So we did our infill. I believe there was a known landmine area that we were kind of skirting around. It was kind of dicey a little bit, but we got set up, and I wasn't on the camera, but I think as soon as it got dark, we got lit up, and it happened so fast, and then it stopped, and then it was over.
You guys respond at all?
We did not respond because I knew that, we all knew that they would occasionally do the recon by fire. And I've thought about this, it's like, man, we must have been compromised, or it was just totally some, the luck for them to kind of hit where we were. But we did know that was one of their tactics, to do like a little recon by fire. But I know it came in close, man. Wow. And we were fortunate no one got hit. And then that was it. And we didn't see anything. It was like they disappeared. So, So really we had that engagement where we felt it was like a recon by fire. And then during combat search and rescue, during the air war, when we had U.S. pilots dropping bombs in Bosnia, our sister team, like we would go into Tuzla. We would do 3 days on, 3 days off during the air war. And our sister company, Bravo Company, both times during the air war, we had 2 pilots that got shot down that we went in and rescued. I say we. It was our sister company. For whatever reason, they were on both times, because that was like, you wanted to be part of that, man.
Yeah.
And we had a package. It was Special Forces guys. It was Air Force combat controller and PJs. But both times they went in and they got the pilots out. So they figured out from those 2 rescues that they picked up chatter that it's like, hey, when these Americans and these helicopters over here on Tuzla, when they pick up and they start flying towards Serbia, they're coming in. Like a pilot got shot down, so they started figuring it out. So our team, the leadership team, they thought it would be a good idea basically to do like a tactical deception. Like, hey, let's not just lift up the helicopters every time a pilot. Let's do like a tactical deception. We'll pick up. It'll be kind of like a training. We'll fly close to the border and then we'll come back.
Yeah.
Well, we did that tactical deception and we almost got shot down by SA-6s.
Wow.
So those were my 2 kind of near misses, both in the Balkans before GWAT even started.
Oh, yeah, it'd be dicey for sure, especially then.
Yeah.
So fast forward to 9/11. At this point, you've been in for 11 years, right? Ish. Where were you on 9/11, and how did that day transpire from your experience?
Yeah, man. September 4th of 2001, I believe it was September 4th. I was in Stuttgart, Germany, and flew back to the U.S. to Fort Bragg, North Carolina, and basically doing a professional development course. Hey, to make the next rank, you got to go through. It's like 4 months. It was Special Forces Non-Commissioned Officer Academy or education. So I was going to be in Fort Bragg from September to December, September to December, 4 months of regular Army stuff, Special Forces stuff, planning, all that type of stuff. And our first week, we were there. I think we were doing like a lot of like regular Army type stuff. And we went into our classroom, and one of the instructors came in and whispered something in our instructor's ear. And we were kind of like, oh, I wonder what's going on. And then the next thing you know, they pushed out one of those old carts, with the TV on them. Do you remember those?
Oh, yeah.
Pushed in the cart with the TV. And then they said, hey, there's been an incident in New York, planes hit. And they wheeled in the TV. And I'm in a classroom of, there's probably 20 of us, 25 Green Berets. And we watched the second plane hit.
Wow.
And, man, just furious, and we had a front row seat just watching, the NYPD guys and gals and FDNY, the heroic response and the loss of life that day. Yeah. And we knew that everything had changed. And, there was a lot of guys that it's like, man, we're going to go. Yeah, it's time to go. Our country needs us. Like, this is going to change everything. And I didn't realize at the time, man, how quickly things changed. And I always remember this because I was an out-of-towner. So I was there at Fort Bragg, and I was staying on Fort Bragg. They had like a military style hotel. It wasn't really anything nice or famous, and I didn't get any Marriott points.
Yeah.
But it was a room and all that stuff. But this is how quickly things changed. I remember they released us for lunch like they typically did, and this is how fast things changed. So I was a guy that lived, I could walk around and I didn't have to leave base. But we had guys that were part of this training that, 3rd group, 7th group at the time, they were all at Fort Bragg. And these guys lived off post. They had families, they had kids. They could go home for lunch and eat and come back. And this is how quickly things changed, man. When they released us for lunch, those guys left. When they tried to come back at like 12:30, 12:45, they couldn't get back on post.
Yeah.
Because they had locked everything down.
Yeah.
And I remember we came back to class, and there was a few of us that were just like me, that we didn't have to go anywhere. So we continued on with our training, and we were missing mostly the 3rd and 7th group guys that went home and saw their wives and their families. And it's like, man, where the hell are these guys? And you're trying to get a hold of them. And I think one or two guys were able to come back, and they had to leave their vehicles, and they had to hop on a bike and take like some of those dirt trails, the running trails, to get back, because they were worried about getting dropped. But of course, they had some grace and they understood but they just locked everything down.
Yeah. Yeah. I remember the same thing on Coronado, like West Coast time. So I was on the way to work when it happened. And even by the time I got to the gate, it took hours of just sitting in line. I mean, they basically took every single person coming through the gate, ID or not, and like pulled them out of the car, went through the entire car. I mean, they were letting people on, but it was a full blown, like, more than a DUI inspection. It was like, probable cause for trafficking of narcotics type of police stop for every single vehicle that came through. It was wild. But
Yeah, things change quickly, man.
So did you finish that course, or did they say get back to?
Yeah, we all finished. Even the guys, from fifth group that, of course, the first group that was in Afghanistan, the horse soldiers and all that. The fifth group guys were really pissed because they were like, man, we got to be here in this course. Like, we're missing it. But everybody finished the course. I don't think they sent anybody back early. But yeah, we all finished the course, and then, we all went back to our groups.
Yeah.
So for me, I went back to Stuttgart, and it was really a kick in the balls for us. At least we felt that way, because everybody wanted to be in the fight.
Yeah. Well, I think, the last big confrontation that took place was Desert Storm. And I think most people thought it'd be a few weeks of intense airstrikes and a little bit of stuff in the ground, and then that'd be it. And if you don't get in on the first shot, then you're going to miss it.
Yeah, that's exactly what it was.
Yeah. Little did any of us know that 2 decades later we're still there.
But you're right, man. A lot of people forget that. Like, that was, everybody was like, man, we're going to miss this thing.
Yeah.
And these guys are, they're the ones that get to go do this. And there was some professional jealousy there, and people just wanted to be in the game.
Yeah. I think you could use that same logic with the invasion of Iraq, generally speaking, is to look back on it now. I think it's pretty easy to say that it was a mistake, that it wasn't really warranted, and we probably shouldn't have gone. But we also, I think, sitting here 20 plus years later, you forget that, that was on the heels of 9/11, where we basically got caught with our pants down and punched in the mouth. And, a sitting president is not wanting that to happen again, is going to have a pretty itchy trigger finger and want to preemptively get involved if he thinks there's an inkling of something like that happening again. And that's hard to even put yourself back in that mindset of how kind of walking on eggshells I think our entire country was as it relates to foreign policy. But
yeah.
All right. So you finish the course, you go back to Stuttgart. When was the first time that you actually deployed with the global war on terrorism, and kind of walk us through the lead up to it?
Yeah. So I did 4 years in 1st Battalion, and then I left in 2002, and I went back to Fort Carson, Colorado, Maine, which is where 10th Group headquarters is located. And as soon as I showed up in the fall of 2002, as a brand new guy, I was an E7, had great experience, was well trained and all those things, and showed up on my team, and it was prep for the big invasion in Iraq.
Yeah. And
we were stoked for it. Like, we thought we'd missed everything in Afghanistan, like you said earlier, not knowing we were going to be there decades.
Yeah.
But we started prepping for Iraq, and we were just like, oh man, this is our opportunity. This is our shot. And so that fall we prepped, and it's kind of interesting looking back, some of the things that we had prepped for, the intel that I remember that we received. It was based a lot on capitulation, which I had to ask someone else. I was like, hey, capitulation, what are we talking about here?
It's that West Virginia.
Yeah, that West Virginia. I don't think that was taught in the curriculum, but figured that out. I was like, okay, capitulation. All right. They think all these dudes are going to surrender, and the officers are going to, they're going to be able to keep their pistol and kind of keep order. And it was all going to be like this orderly surrender type stuff. And
well, going back to the first Persian Gulf War, where that's exactly what it was. Just waves of people, submitting basically and giving themselves up. And it was, but.
Yeah, so that's what the plan, that's what they thought was going to happen, and it really didn't work out that way. But our objective, 10th Group, and we had some elements from 3rd Special Forces Group that complemented us as well. But they wanted us up north to link up with the Kurdish Peshmerga, and they had all these Iraqi divisions. I think they had at least 10 Iraqi divisions, maybe more, that were up north in the Mosul area. And they were really worried about those divisions. If there was nothing to keep them up there, engaged, they were worried about those Iraqi divisions possibly leaving and going down south to reinforce Baghdad, which was the main effort, for us is Baghdad. So that's what we were sent there to do, was to, link up with our Kurdish Peshmerga allies and engage with all these Iraqi divisions with our brothers from the Air Force calling in airstrikes.
Yeah.
The first wrench that got thrown into this whole planning thing was we were supposed to go into Turkey, and then all of our equipment was there, our vehicles, everything that we needed was in Turkey. And then we were just going to drive down from Turkey into northern Iraq, link up with the Kurds, and then we were going to go.
And then Turkey says, "No, you're not doing it."
Yeah, you guys can kiss our ass. We're not doing that.
Yeah.
So that was a big curveball. And then they kind of had to go back. They were trying to negotiate, hey, you won't let us use land. How about air? And then Turkey was like, no, you can't use that.
Yeah.
No land, no air. So that was a huge wrench that they threw into our planning process. And then we had to work out an alternative, and it was Jordan. We stayed in Romania for a couple of weeks. This is February of 2003. The invasion started the 20-something of March, 2003. So we were pre-staged in February in Romania. We ended up going to Jordan at some point, and then that's when they said, hey, we're going to fly you guys in 6 MC-130s. We're going to fly you guys in over the western part of Iraq and get you linked in with your Kurdish Peshmerga up in the Erbil area. So that's what we ended up doing.
Yeah. And how was that as far as op tempo and kind of combat activity? I mean, did you end up mixing it up with some conventional Iraqi forces, or was it pretty benign?
I would love to be able to sit here and say that we called in tons of airstrikes and killed hundreds of Iraqi soldiers, but we didn't do that. A lot of, most of the teams did. We were the red step-headed stepchild, basically a 10th group at that time. Before I got there, before I got to my team, there was an incident where a guy got blown up, and it was before I got there. Some kind of mishap on a demo range, and a guy got fucked up pretty good. And because of our team leader and the leadership, it was kind of like, hey, we can't trust this team to do training. And, they got a couple guys fucked up. So we were kind of pushed off to the side. And that's just being fair. I hate to say it, but I think that was just the leadership. It's like, hey,
can't trust you guys.
Can't trust these guys. So they put us in doing an enemy prisoner of war camp, EPW camp, because another part of the capitulation, they thought that we were going to have all these high value Ba'ath Party and generals and deck of cards and all these dudes. So we were tasked with setting up an EPW camp, and a lot of our other teams were up on the green line. They were calling in airstrikes and just killing the Iraqi soldiers and the Iraqi divisions. I mean, it was destruction with the help of our big brother and sister from the Air Force. But we were kind of kicked off to the side, and none of these senior Ba'ath Party deck of card, we didn't see any. I think we had maybe one or two. We had a Ba'ath Party warrant officer, but the Kurds were taking all of the, if there was anybody that was worth taking, the Kurds were taking them, and they were, doing their own, interrogations and all of that stuff. And I think they just gave us a couple people just to kind of keep us busy. And it did keep us busy because we had to make sure that everything was done the right way with the Red Cross, and, they would come out. But it was a humbling experience. It was a kick in the balls for us as a team. We had our S3 Fran Beaudet, who later on became a 3-star general and was the United States Army Special Operations Commander. Great guy, but he actually got us into the action a couple weeks into this whole EPW thing. We were able to turn that over. I think it was 10th Mountain that came in, a regular Army infantry unit. They came in, they took the EPW camp, and it freed us up. We got to do a little bit of work, Altoon Capri, when we started pushing west toward Mosul and going to the airport. So we got to operate a little bit, but it wasn't nothing crazy. We had a couple little small skirmishes at night, but it was, it was far. It was nothing close, nothing to brag about.
Yeah.
We did a few months there, and then we went back to Fort Carson. So it was very, very anticlimactic.
Yeah. Which, I can certainly understand the frustration there, but you go back and then ultimately you end up going back again, and that's not the case, right? I mean,
I had a few more trips. Actually, after that initial trip to Iraq in 2003, we went back to Kosovo in the fall of 2003 and into early 2004. And we got to do some PIFWIC stuff, which, PIFWIC is the personnel indicted for war crime. Because all the national level asset guys, Delta, SEAL Team 6, all those cats, the Super Bowl was in Afghanistan and Iraq. So they all left the Balkans. We still had a few guys that were that were indicted for war crimes. So when we went back to Kosovo, we were pretty much the only game in town. So we got to do a little bit of that. Nothing too sexy, but it was fun.
Yeah.
It was fun for us. And then we went back to Iraq in 2004, 2005. We were in the eastern part of Iraq, east of Bakuba, along the Iranian border. Then, of course, went there in 2006 as a team sergeant, 2007 as a team sergeant. But one of the things I'd like to talk about, if you don't mind, of course, is probably one of my biggest fuck ups in Special Forces, a big regret. And it was over something stupid. It was over me being arrogant, but it was a valuable lesson that I learned. So I was doing a lot of targeting when, especially that rotation, 04, 05. And we had some members of the team that were trained in the Iraqi army, and they were doing the foreign internal defense, the FIT stuff. And, it was kind of like our team was broken down. Guys were trained in the Iraqi army, or guys were, doing targeting and intelligence type work, right? So one of our younger guys was developing a target set in an area, I think it was called Tawila. But we were this was a sleepy area on the eastern part of Iraq. It was a sleepy area. There was not a lot going on. Like all the action was going on like west of us in Bakuba or southwest of us in Baghdad. That's where they were doing all the suicide bombers and V-bids and all that stuff. But what we would learn later is that was kind of like their area where they lived, and they did their refit, but they did all of their work somewhere else, right? So everyone thought we were in this little sleepy area and there wasn't a lot going on. There was actually even talk of moving our Special Forces team somewhere else where there was more action. But we were getting a lot of reporting, and they were questioning our reporting. This young guy that I'm getting ready to talk about was actually reporting on Zarqali, which was the number one target in Iraq at this point. And would later on, I think it was 2006 is when he got killed in the Bakuba area. So it was in the vicinity of the things that we were reporting on, and no one fucking believed us because it was just so outrageous. It was like, there's nothing going on out there. You guys are in the middle of fucking nowhere. But one of the young guys that was reporting on Zarqali had a newer Iraqi that he was dealing with. And it was basically a confidence target. Hey, this guy is saying this, that there's all like, one of the things that kind of pisses me off about the invasion is that the initial Iraqi invasion, that we didn't have the troops, at least in my humble opinion, we didn't have enough troops to secure the country. And I think that was a huge lesson learned, because if you go in there light and you don't secure everything, what's going to happen? They're going to loot all of the military bases. That's exactly what we dealt with. And we had to eat that shit for years.
Yeah.
And how many people did it kill, maim, injure? But that was one of the things. So, go ahead. Sorry.
Well, I was just going to say that the bitch of it is we already knew that. We'd already learned that lesson in World War II. For that matter, you could argue the same thing in different aspects of Vietnam, so it's not like we didn't know that. To me, that's one of the most frustrating things about military operations and foreign policy currently is like we've already learned a lot of lessons in blood in our countrymen's blood over, decades and decades of
You're right.
of interactions with, other global entities. And we continue to make the same fucking mistakes. It's just, I don't get it.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah. I don't get it either, man. And we saw it in 2003 when we went into Mosul. There was just so much shit. We tried to blow as much of it as we could, but we just didn't have the manpower to do it. So back to this confidence target, one of the younger guys, Green Beret, he's working with this dude. He's like, hey, there's an area out in the middle of fucking nowhere that these guys looted all of these things from our base where we were at, KMTB. It was an Iraqi training base. They looted all of the armament from there and they buried it out here in this area. So basically it was a cache recovery. And I'm a senior E7. And I look at this mission and it's a cache recovery confidence target with the Green Berets that are working with the Iraqi army for my team, to go out there and kind of help, develop them and let them do it. And I looked at it in a very arrogant way. And I was like, fuck, I'm not doing a cache recovery. Like, I got targeting shit to do. Like, this is kind of like down here, And I admit that was very arrogant of me.
Like it's beneath you to...
Like it was beneath me. Yeah. It's like, hey, I'll let you guys go do that one. And I'm going to stay focused and I'll help with the radios and all of that stuff. But that is exactly how I hate to admit it, but that's exactly how I looked at it. It was way low on the chain beneath me. And, if guys did have to stay back, you couldn't always take the whole team. So it was like, hey, I'm staying back. I got the radios. And there was a few other guys there as well. I don't think anybody else was as arrogant about it as I was. But, we had the radios. We had our work that we had to do. They went out. They did this target. And they fucking ran into an Al-Qaeda training camp. Wow. Out in the middle of fucking nowhere.
Oh, shit.
And it was either an Al-Qaeda training camp or they were having some kind of significant meeting in the area, which, we didn't have visibility on where maybe Zarqawi was in the area. I'm not saying he was, but maybe there was some huge significant event going on that we didn't see. These guys kind of had one of the roads locked down. And it was basically like this dirt road and it went over a bridge. And they basically had like an L-shaped ambush, like a trench type thing set up. And I think this was in April of 2005, I believe, out in the middle of fucking nowhere, like I said. But here you have a few vehicles, special forces guys, gun trucks. We had our regular army. It was a 278th Regimental Combat Team, I think, out of Tennessee. That was out there. And then you had a bunch of Iraqi army dudes that bumble right into this fucking Al-Qaeda training camp, L-shaped ambush, and all hell breaks loose. And I forgot to mention that the guy that basically took my seat, if I would have been there, was like the S2 guy from the 278, the National Guard.
Wow.
So he's in the vehicle with the special forces dudes, and then they start taking care of business. They start engaging with the enemy. They call in airstrikes. I think they had some OH-58s that came in and dropped some shit. But our guys got out and they started maneuvering a little bit. Then I think they kind of pulled back. But all hell broke loose.
Do you know about how many Al-Qaeda fighters were on target?
I think it was maybe 20 to 30.
Yeah.
20 to 30 guys. So this all happens. And then, I'm listening to the radio and listening to them calling the airstrikes. I'm like, motherfucker. I'm missing like, damn it.
Varsity ship.
I was devastated, dude. I was devastated. We ended up, me and a buddy, Jason, and somebody else, I think 4 hours later, we got on a helo and we linked up. All the death had already been dealt. They had pretty much killed everybody by then. Either the 58s killed them or our guys killed them. They were throwing grenades, dude. It was intense. It was intense. It was in your face. And unfortunately, unfortunately, we had 2 of our guys from the 278th Regimental Combat Team that got killed.
Oh, wow.
That were in the trenches, that were closing with and fighting and eliminating the enemy. And our medics tried to save them, and just a lot of heroism that day. I think once it was all said and done, our team sergeant was awarded the Silver Star. Our 18 Delta was awarded the Silver Star. A shit ton of BSMVs. The guy that replaced me got a BSMV. Did a great job. I wish I could remember his name. I'd love to reach out to him, but he did a great job. He was there with other Green Berets and was listening and fighting. And
do you think if you had been there, it would have turned out any different?
I don't think so. I think probably things would have happened the way they did. And it wasn't like, I was in a leadership position. The guy that replaced me was an E7. I was an E7. I don't think so. But it is something that I think often about. It's just like, man.
Yeah.
And I learned valuable lessons from that. I did learn valuable lessons. The next day, we processed another guy that flew up from Bakuba. His name's Ricky Fowler, a good friend of mine. We helped process everything and do all the sensitive site exploitation and all that, the SSE. Just a crazy, bizarre, like, hey, this is like confidence target shit, and then to run
Can
into
you
something
explain
like
the
that.
confidence target thing to the audience?
Confidence target is like, it might sound a little silly in combat to hear something like that, but not everything is like, hey, we're going after HVIs. These are Al-Qaeda hardened, potentially suicide bombers, and we're probably going to take casualties and we're going to get people killed and, all those type of things, like a very significant, serious target. Sometimes there's, hey, this is a guy that's like a facilitator, or, he's not going to have weapons. He's probably going to have money. And it could be kind of, perceived as like maybe a confidence target.
Like the base hits of targets.
Yeah. Like the basics. And we did it too later on, especially like in 2007. We were directed. It was like, hey, this is like one of their initial targets. So something smaller, that's not, we don't expect to get into a gunfight. Because a lot of times in Iraq, when you're executing targets, you have a really good idea if it's going to be hot.
Yeah.
That
was your second deployment or third deployment?
0405 was my second deployment, but it was such a valuable learning experience for me to not be arrogant and to not be complacent. It was really valuable. Like, it sucked that I went through it, but I'm glad I did.
Yeah.
Because my third trip to Iraq was at 06, January to August 2006, which is what Grit to Glory is based on, is that January to August 2006.
Yeah.
So I was a team sergeant, and I learned, because of what I went through, that whole arrogance piece. I was like, man, I'm not missing shit.
Yeah.
If the guys are leaving our compound, I'm going to be with them.
Yeah.
I don't give a fuck if we're dropping the terp off so he can go back and see his family in the States, or, hey, we need to go back and try to get some, barter for some steaks and what, like, I don't give a fuck what it is. If people leave our compound, I'm going to be there.
Yeah. Yeah. That's legit.
Yeah.
Did anything else significant happen on that second deployment before you rotated out?
That was the most significant piece. Was that firefight. We were fortunate. We got a few HVIs that rotation, but that was the most like, that was the biggest thing, man.
Yeah,
and I missed it.
Yeah. All right, so you wrote the book Grit to Glory, and it's primarily or heavily focused on your third Iraq deployment. I'm curious, before you went, did you have any type of premonition or gut feeling that things were going to lead to enough meat and potatoes that you would later write a book about, or like, did it feel like it was a different deployment? Were there any heads up from any leadership above where you were at that said this is going to be a dick dragger, or, we're going into a pretty hot spot, or anything like that?
I'd say the one thing, it felt more significant than any other Iraq deployment at that point. Cause I don't, only been there 2 times previous, but to be going to Baghdad where it seemed like all hell was breaking loose. It seemed like it was going to be more significant, but I don't think I could have wrapped my brain around how significant it was going to be because, in February is when the Civil War ignited that year. So, before we got there, Baghdad was deadly and violent and chaotic and dangerous, all those things. But in February of 2006, it took a whole different turn. So, but yeah, man, I knew it was going to be more significant than the previous 2, but I just didn't know how much.
Was it right away? Like the second you were on the ground and getting after it, like things, you were like, holy shit, this is no joke.
Yeah. And I didn't start that rotation out great either. It was a bad start, man. It was a bad start. And I was so hungry, because by this time, January 2006, I'd been in 15 years. I was in E8, I was a master sergeant. I was leading my first special forces team. I was ready. I wanted to burn shit down. I had good experience. I had good skills. I had good training. Like I wanted to burn shit down. And, we just started out on the wrong foot. We had some like mean girls gossip shit that was going on when I first got there. Because I was one of the first guys on the ground in January. There was me and a couple of my other dudes that went with me. And a couple of months before, I'd sent one of my senior E7s to basically do, like a site check and, hey, see what the house is like, see what the environment's like, what's the team like, to kind of get some atmospherics of what's going on. And this was a guy that was going through a divorce at the time. And I was trying to take care of him. I was trying to get him some extra pay and just trying to help him out a little bit. And it probably wasn't the wisest decision looking back. But when he got to Baghdad, all he was asking the 5th Special Forces Group team, which we were, replacing, he was talking about booze and all the wrong shit, right? So 5th Group was like, man, what's up with this cat? Like he hasn't really asked any operational type questions. So it kind of started this mean girls gossip type shit. So when I got there in January and I was ready to do business, I started hearing like, oh, that's like the party team. And man, we weren't Boy Scouts by no means, but for that to be like the main reputation, like, hey, this is the party guys that are going to come in, because the way 5th Group was looking at it was like, they were coming right back. We were going to relieve them. And then we were going to do 8 months. And then they were coming right back to the same house. And they're thinking,
this is who we're turning it over to.
Yeah. And if these dudes are going to fuck off for 8 months and get drunk and chase pills or whatever, we're going to come back and we're going to be starting, in the negative.
Yeah.
And that could be catastrophic.
Sure.
So they were worried about that. And I had to address that first. I had to deal with all that. And I made the decision with my chain of commands buy-in. I was like, hey, this guy's not going to come out to Apache. That's where we were at Camp Apache in Adamiyah, which is a Sunni suburb of Baghdad. It's like, hey, this dude's not coming out. As soon as he gets into country, I'm going to let him know that he's going to go do admin shit. He's not going to do Green Beret shit. So the day that I was doing that and was going to tell him, hey, you're done, my communications guy that morning had loaded up our radios in the gun trucks, because we're still doing our transfer, our handoff with 5th Group. The commo guy had loaded up all the crypto in the gun trucks, and inadvertently, mistakenly, I guess he left the CYZ on the top of the gun truck or on the bumper or somewhere. And we
CYZ
leave.
For the listener.
CYZ, it's basically a device that gives the military encrypted communication, so we can talk securely without someone overhearing or knowing what we're talking about. If you think like maybe on your iPhone, like Signal, where you text your family or your friends and it's encrypted and you don't have to worry about anyone reading it. So I call it like the little black magic box. It allows us to talk encrypted. So he leaves it. I believe it probably fell off at some point. So I leave Apache, go through the green zone in Baghdad. We're on Baghdad International Airport, and I get the call from the fifth group team sergeant. He's like, "Hey, there's a missing CYZ. See if you can find it." And I thought what I heard in my ears was, "Oh, it's a missing CYZ. It's a missing device. Sucks to be fifth group because they just lost something. Heads are going to roll over that shit. That's not going to be popular." So I was I was kind of relaxed about it. I was like, sucks to be them, but I got shit I got to deal with because I'm getting ready to basically fire somebody. Yeah. Even though it's a little tricky in the military to do something like that, but basically move them off my special forces team. So then I get a call, and it's from my commo guy. And I can tell by his voice that something's fucking wrong. And I'm like, dude, calm down. Like what's going on? And I learned that it's our piece of equipment that's missing. And I was like, fuck me.
That's one of those fuck ups that like you just can't do.
Yeah. You can't do that one.
Can't fuck that up.
Can't fuck that up.
It's like losing the football. Like,
yeah. I
left the football in Applebee's. No, you didn't.
Yeah.
Like, you couldn't have.
Yeah. It's one of the worst things that, I mean, obviously there's worse things,
Sure.
Somebody wounded or killed, but it's fucking up there, dude.
Yeah.
As you know,
Yeah.
It's very sensitive. It's a big deal. Typically, someone's going to get fired over that, and someone was probably going to be me. And I realized that.
Maybe throw an air tag on it next time.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. But at that time, I was just like, all right, fuck it. We're going to find that thing. Like it can't, like I was basically like you, like it couldn't be missing. Like it's somewhere. You just don't see it. I was like, all right, keep looking. I'm going to deal with this thing over here. So I let him know, and that wasn't fucking very popular, to have that conversation that, hey man, you're not coming out to the house. You're done. You're going to do admin shit. And then I pick up the rest of the team and we roll back to base back to Apache. And sure enough, it's gone, man. It's gone. It's not there. And then of course, have to make that phone call and let everybody know. So it's like, dude, I'm starting out like Mean Girls gossip type shit, party stuff, party reputation. And then we can't keep track of our fucking equipment. And I was like, it wasn't lost on me that I was probably going to be the next guy that got dropped off to do admin shit and not do combat shit. It wasn't lost on me. And it was a fucking low feeling, man, a bad feeling because I'd worked so hard, 15 years to get to this point, and all I wanted to do was to lead my special forces team into combat, and I wanted to burn shit down. And I knew that it might not last very long. Wow. And of course, Fulberg Colonel, the group commander, Colonel Tovo, was the 10th group commander. He scheduled a visit to come out and see the team. So when that happened, I knew like, man, this is probably it, and I had to do a lot of self-reflection, dude, because there wasn't really anything I could do. I couldn't make this fucking thing magically reappear. It had already been gone. It was lost. It was done. It was nowhere to be found. And I had to do some self-reflection, dude. I had to put my big boy pants on and say, hey, control what you can control. And he's going to make his decision on what he thinks best for 10th Special Forces Group. And
how did he handle it?
He handled it fucking like a champ. He handled it great. Little did I know at this time, that they were basically working on some war crime shit. Some allegations of, some Green Berets killing some innocent Iraqis, like some retaliation type shit. with one of the outgoing 5th Special Forces Group teams. So they, like the CID and whoever else that was involved in this investigation, it was going on right around this time period. So actually, this missing device wasn't like the biggest deal that was going on because they had these serious allegations.
It's not a good block of time for Green Berets at that
No, it wasn't. And I think the allegations eventually got cleared up. They let that 5th group team redeploy back to Fort Campbell. But Colonel Tobo came out. He was very pragmatic, and he asked a couple of questions. And I decided that the best way that I could control what I could control was to own it and just take that like extreme ownership and say, hey, sir, I take responsibility for the missing equipment. It's on me. I can assure you that if you give me a second chance, it'll never happen again. And I assure you that you won't regret this decision. And then he talked to the rest of the team. And then before he left, he called my battalion commander, Sean Swindell. They talked a little bit. And then he said, hey, just do a good job down here. Don't be losing anything else.
Yeah. Was there any repercussions for the comm guy?
I was fucking furious with him, dude. I was furious with him. And he had showed me something before we deployed. We did some driver's training. And we were down in Florida at Griffin Group. And they had these, I don't know if you ever went through Griffin Group or any of the driver's type training.
Not there, no.
But they had the vehicles, they took the doors off the vehicles, and they had souped up paintball guns. Like the enemy had souped up paintball guns. Like the shit. Like you would get those feelings like you're getting shot, man. That's how it fucking hurt, dude. And he showed me something and I kind of filed it away. But we were driving through this ambush and we were all getting lit up with these souped up paintball guns. And he kind of like ducked in the back of the vehicle when we were all returning fire. And that kind of caught my eye. It's like, what the fuck? You know, it's kind of like a bitch move. But it was like, okay. I kind of filed that one away. And then he kind of recovered and he did all right. And then he lost the piece of equipment. And then he did one other thing, probably a month later. He got up on the roof of our compound and fired up some like red star clusters, which is, you know, typically known as like an emergency type thing. And it wasn't an emergency.
Like just fucking around.
He was just fucking around, being an idiot. So that was the third strike. And then I had to move him to an admin role as well. But yeah, eventually that caught up to him. But
I can't imagine having a sense of humor after losing a piece of equipment like that and then doing anything that's
jackassery.
I mean, yeah, like I can't imagine doing anything that's not just strictly fucking business with my head down.
You would think,
hoping I don't fuck up again. You know.
Yeah, yeah. You would think, but yeah, things eventually got, you know, they caught up to him. But luckily, you know, Colonel Tobo and Lieutenant Colonel Swindell saw enough in me to give me another opportunity. And I fucking seized it, man. I seized it.
Can you synopsize what seizing it means by walking us through that deployment and really getting after it in such a busy op tempo environment?
Yeah. I think that I saw kind of like my life and my career like flash before me. And then I was, you know, I felt like I was given a second chance because I knew that when something like that typically happens, someone's probably going to get fired. And I really wanted to like, man, I want to make these guys proud. Like I want to make them like, man, that was the fucking best decision that we made to let that dude stay on that team and lead that team the way he did. So I think I kind of just saw it. It was almost like a freeing moment. Like, hey man, it's wide open. Go out there and get it done.
What was the gist of the operations in terms of the kind of 30,000 foot view or big picture of what the objective was?
Man, we had such a far left and right limit to do what we thought we, you know, just like go out there and make shit happen. It was basically build a plane mid-flight and just make great shit happen. It was, very vague, conduct sensitive special operations for impact and work with the local Iraqis and all of those type of things. And we were doing a lot of targeting. But we just had such a far left and right limit just to go out there and make shit happen in Adamiyah. And then, of course, we got there in January, and then February 22nd, 2006, Al-Qaeda militants bombed a Shia mosque in Samarra, and it ignited a no-shit civil war across the country. And I remember that time period, man, because they didn't advertise that or say that on the news. They made up some other bullshit words for it, but they didn't say civil war right away. But we saw it right away, like things increased drastically, like the level of violence and the retaliation and we were always in the middle, as Americans, but the Sunni on Shia, Shia on Sunni, man, it exploded. So it ignited, I think they called it sectarian violence.
Yeah.
Which was a nice, softer, maybe politically softer term than a civil war. But we saw it at that time as a no shit. It was a civil war.
How did that impact your guys' operations? I mean, can you share, some of the things that you did and kind of walk us through the play-by-play of some of those impactful operations that you conducted?
Yeah, well, because of the background of what was going on with the Civil War, where we were at Apache, it was the last Sunni stronghold in Baghdad because all the Shia started pushing out the Sunnis, which is all of like Saddam's people. So all the Shia started pushing out all the Sunnis all around Baghdad. Adamiyah was the last Sunni stronghold in Baghdad. And they had one of the largest Sunni mosques is in Adamiyah. It's called the Abu Hanifa Mosque. So it was just like a hornet's nest. And we were at ground zero. We just happened to be the team, with the front row seat of all this violence. But we started looking at targets. We inherited targets from Fifth Group. They did a great job. They were working all of these target sets. So they passed these tips, target intelligence packets of these individuals, and that's what we really had to work off of initially. It's like, okay, well, these are the guys that are significant enough. They've been hunted for the last 8 months to a year. So let's start looking at these guys and see if we can maybe have better luck, because Fifth Group didn't have luck getting them. So we kind of started with one of the guys at the top of the list. His name was Dia. And so we were doing a lot of manhunting. We were doing a lot of targeting initially. And then, so we were successful with that. And that kind of just broke things open was when we were able to capture that guy. And it was a Shia target set. And the intel that we received off of that, it just really kind of spiraled, and it was success for us. It was like one of our first big successes. It was a daylight hit. A lot of us were in civilian clothes. It just really kind of set up the rest of the rotation. So we were doing a lot of manhunting for the rest of that rotation. And we also had a relationship with the 101st Airborne Division, who were co-located. I mean, we weren't on the same compound. We had separation with these big ass walls and all that type of stuff. But we had our brothers from the 101st that were responsible for Adamiyah, and they worked with the Iraqi army. So a lot of the things that we got into was in support of our brothers from the 101st, because when we first got there, they came over and we had a relationship, and it was like, hey, we spend a ton of time in Adamiyah. We just wanted to know with you guys, the new Special Forces team, if we get into trouble, you guys are like our fastest response. Will you respond and help us? And we were like, fuck yeah, we will. And they were like, well, we just had to ask because you guys are probably doing your little secret squirrel shit or whatever. We just wanted to know, like, if we get into a no shit gunfight and we need help, will you come? We're like, hell yeah, we will. And then we had the same agreement with us. It was like, hey man, we roll out typically 2 gun trucks, 6 dudes, maybe 7 with an interpreter. If we get into something, will you come help us? And they were like, absolutely, man. So, so a big part of the rest of that rotation was, the 101st getting into some of these serious engagements, and then we would come and help them if they wanted our help. So that kind of played a big role. So it was a lot of manhunting and a lot of working with the 101st and trying to really solidify that relationship that we had with them.
Could you share a story from each of those contexts? One where they back you guys up QRF wise, and then one where you guys react to one of theirs?
Yeah, I don't know if we really ran into anything where we called them to help us.
Really?
Okay, maybe that's wrong. Our first target set, the Dia mission, and we did that. We executed that right outside Sadr City. We asked them to be, basically kind of like our assault force, or like, hey, be a QRF, be extra guns on the ground for us. So we did ask them. That was something that we did joint, and that was successful. They did a good job. Something we did respond to a few of their ticks, troops in contact. And the biggest one from the book is April 17th, 2006. We woke up that morning, all hell was breaking loose at Apache. And we could tell, man, it was a significant gunfight. It was, it was like, damn.
About how many 101st guys at a time are going out? Or I guess in this case, how many of their troops were there?
I think they had maybe like a platoon size element that was out, close to a platoon size.
Which is how many for the listener?
Close to 30 guys,
yeah.
Somewhere probably 25, 30 guys that they had out. And they were with their Iraqi army counterparts. So April 17th, the morning, all hell's breaking loose. We reached out to them on the radio and say, hey, sounds like you guys are in a pretty good firefight. And by that point, we were kind of addicted to that. Like, hey, this is our opportunity to go out and sling some lead with these guys. And we spent so much time trying to find bad dudes. And it's like, well, they found them. Like, they're out there fighting them. So we can keep fucking around and writing reports and trying to find them the hard way, or we can just go out there and help kill these dudes and kind of be done with it, Yeah. That's the way that I looked at it anyway. But we called them on the radio and said, hey, you guys need anything? And they're like, nope, we're good. We got it. It's like, okay. So, and this kind of goes back to 04, 05 and not being arrogant and taking advantage of opportunities, because you never know. So we had an administrative convoy that day. We were dropping off an interpreter at BIOP, Baghdad International Airport, to go back home and see his family. We were getting turret upgrades, because I don't know if you remember, like the 06 time period, we kind of had the regular setup, and they were starting to install big thick ass glass, to help protect the gunner even more. So we were going to get some of the glass installed on the turrets, and we were going to do that at BIOP. And I think we were going to pick up some supplies, and then we were going to come back to base. Total administrative convoy. But, you still got to be ready if all hell breaks loose. And we were dropping, we had a meeting in the green zone. So we were dropping one of the guys off, and we left Apache. We went to the green zone. We dropped off our guy for a meeting, and we were getting ready to leave the green zone on Route Irish, which we always enjoyed Route Irish, man, because we could just haul ass on Route Irish. But we were getting ready to hit Route Irish to go to BIOP, and we got the call. And it was my team leader. He was calling me. We had these like a little embassy issued cell phones. And he's like, hey, man, I don't know where you guys are at, but the 101st just called. They do need help. Are you able to help them? Where are you at? I was like, shit, man, we're in the green zone. We're getting ready to hop on Route Irish to go to BIOP. Do they really need our help? Because we just talked to them not that long ago. And he's like, yeah, man, they need some help. And it was like, okay. I knew the answer, but I still felt like, as the team sergeant, I thought it'd be appropriate to kind of do like a little huddle. Because when you're asking guys for something like this, like to go into a known gunfight and all hell's breaking loose, I thought it was important to get that buy-in. I was like, hey, man, the 101st guys, they do need some help. Are you guys down to go back and help them? I'm down. And every man that was there was like, yeah, hell yeah, let's do it. So we called back and said, hey, let's coordinate everything on the radio, tell them we're inbound, and got a little bit of instructions. And we headed back to Adamiyah and linked up. We initially linked up with the Iraqi army. And what we had dealt with, this is April, but what we had dealt with from January to April was a lot of harassment, hit and run type shit. They didn't really want to go toe to toe with the U.S. Army. A lot of sneak and peek type shit. It's just they hit, they run off, and they kind of bleed back into the environment. But this day it was overcast. I think they knew that we didn't have any air support, and they were a little frisky. They were wanting to fight, and they were wanting to go toe to toe. And when we got there and linked up with the Iraqi army, I wanted to find out where everybody was. RPGs, PKM, AK, like they had a little bit of everything for us that day. But I linked up with the Iraqi army. They told me where the 101st leadership was, the 101st element. I wanted to link up with them, do a face-to-face, because we didn't want to kill any of our own people. And then linked up with the 101st, and they said the same thing. It was like, hey, man, these guys are maneuvering. And they were worried. They didn't want to get sucked into something and then they couldn't get back out. That was always a concern in Adamiyah because, some of those roads in Baghdad, the streets are so tight. There's shit everywhere. It's a 360-degree urban environment. You don't know where people are, windows, rooftops, alleys, streets, cars, there's fucking people everywhere. But I linked up with the 101st, and it was basically like, from here to here is bad guys. If you see guys out, like it's bad guys. There's no friendly Iraqi police. There's no friendly Iraqi army. There's none of us. If you see someone armed, it's a bad guy. Kill it. We're like, awesome. So that was April 17th. Kind of that's the beginning of it. But that's in a nutshell. Is that day? I think that was a 2-hour. That was a 2-hour firefight for us when it was all said and done. I think it was 7 or 8 for the 101st guys. But
did you guys engage a bunch of targets?
Oh yeah,
yeah.
Oh yeah, we engaged a lot of targets, eliminated a lot of enemy targets. At some point, toward the end, I think maybe an hour and a half in, our engine block got shot the fuck out, and our lead vehicle saw that we were leaking fluids, and they called me and said, hey, man, you guys are leaking a lot of fluids. And before I could even say anything, my driver was saying, hey, I lost everything. I lost power. So our engine block got shot out. We had to tow our vehicle out. We towed our vehicle back to base. We swapped it out. We got another vehicle, and we returned right to the fight. And of course, we brought some more ammo to the 101st. It was one of those type of days, man. It was slinging.
Were you guys maneuvering, or was it more kind of set up shop? You have your right and left flank, and you're just engaging almost like a fucking video game, or what?
Yeah, it was a lot like that. It was a lot like these little mobile support by fire positions with the vehicles, especially early on. When we first started clearing some streets while the 101st was trying to get organized, because when we responded, they actually had another QRF. I guess they were trying to get them forever, but they finally did, get there. So we kind of started that whole thing. We kicked it off with our vehicles, and we were just doing a lot of movement with the vehicles and engaging targets, the 50 cal and the machine gun, both of our machine gunners. And then we eventually got everybody online, like the Iraqi army, the 101st, and then I think it was maybe the QRF, and then our 2 vehicles. And we kind of like set up on these streets, and I sent over some of the pictures so you could kind of get a good visual. But we basically just started clearing down these really tight streets, and we just tried to stay online and just engaging the enemy as they engaged us. There were a few times out of the vehicles because they had, sometimes how they block the roads and shit. They just put a bunch of like wire and trash and barrels and all kinds of crazy shit like that. There were a few times I had to get out and clear that shit out of the way. But it was mostly the big work was by the guns.
Yeah. Were you guys ever able to call in any close air support?
No.
It's totally.
Yeah. It wasn't an option.
Any sniper overwatch?
No.
So pretty conventional,
just
street to street.
Yeah.
Wow. That sounds pretty intense.
Yeah.
Any casualties on your guys' side?
I think we had a few, I think there were a few Iraqi army guys that got scuffed up a little bit. I think there was nothing serious though, thank God. And I don't know how.
Yeah.
I don't know how we didn't take more casualties that day for sure.
Yeah. Wow. Was that the most significant?
That was the most significant.
Yeah. For the rest of the deployment, did you just continue to hunt high value targets? And
yes,
and pretty successful with that.
Pretty successful. Yeah, we got some. We were able to take some of the top guys off the target list for sure.
Any deck of cards guys?
No deck of cards guys.
Yeah.
No.
Was it kind of a mixture of high value targets in terms of financiers, bomb makers, whatever, or was it all like hands-on guys?
No, we were definitely going for the high level folks because I think some of the lower level guys, man, dime a dozen. So we were definitely going for some of the higher level. But what we started seeing, and I would piece it together later, was the influence that Iran was having, and especially on the Shia target set. Because I was probably a little bit naive in 2006 when I first got there. I was like, okay, we're in Baghdad now. Like, let's get after Al Qaeda. And that's what, JSOC and, SEAL Team 6 and Delta and all those guys, they were going after Al Qaeda deck of cards, like the remnants of the deck of cards. So obviously, like we thought we were going to get some of that action. Dude, I couldn't fucking buy an Al Qaeda target.
Wow.
Like everything that we were getting was Shia, heavy, like Iranian influence type shit.
Yeah.
And of course that would bleed over until later on, but that's what we started seeing. And it was like, holy shit, man, there's something going on here because our national level assets, they weren't getting off what they were after,
Wow.
But we started seeing something totally different that was like, man, we have to deal with this.
Yeah. Within that same kind of guideline or right and left flank of finishing that deployment, focusing on the high value targets, were all the raids or most of the raids that you conducted pretty similar in terms of how they were executed? And were there any big ticks or resistance laden targets that you guys ran into where it was kind of kicking over a hornet's nest?
I would say for that rotation, we were really successful with daylight hits.
Oh, okay.
And a lot of people didn't want to, because everybody knows the military owns the night. We have the technological advances and the advantage and all of those things. So when you go out in daylight, it's kind of like you're more on an equal playing ground. Yeah. And everyone knows the military, they don't like to fight fair, man. We like to have every advantage. We want to go in and kick everybody's ass. But we found that our daylight opportunities we had more opportunities in daylight because they just weren't expecting it.
Yeah.
We did have a target toward the end. It was a significant high value. It was on the Shia side. Nothing like, the April 17th, but we did have a guy that didn't want to get captured and he thought he was going to be able to run away. But we ended up, we had the whole place surrounded. I think he had a Glock and he fired it just a few times, just I think to try to slow us down. It's like, oh shit, someone in there's got a gun, wait, what's going on? I think he fired it just a few times. He ran up to the rooftop and then he was going to jump, somehow maneuver his way down and kind of squirt off to the backside. But we had the whole place back locked down. And he ends up falling maybe a story and a half, and he fucked himself up pretty good. That was probably one of the more exciting ones toward the end, just because he fired his pistol a few times.
Yeah.
But nothing crazy.
Yeah. Was there a standard methodology that you guys used as far as actions at the objective? For example, you foot patrol in from a certain distance out, you set on the door, you go in. Did you wait till you confirmed something eyes on before you did that? Like, what was kind of
We didn't really have anything like that. I mean, we were more like time sensitive target type shit, like what we called like a TST. It was like, hey, it's here. It's like, we got to develop it on the fly.
Yeah.
Plan as we do. And that's why when I talk about we had the whole place surrounded, that was actually shithouse luck that we did that, because we were driving and we were going to have one of our guys identify the building with like a grappling hook with a visual signal, a VS-17 panel, like something really bright that you could throw and everybody could see and be like, that is the target house right there.
Yeah.
Fucking dude, for whatever reason, I guess he's doing like his best Tyrone. What is that? Tyrone? I was going to say the Rex, the dinosaur thing.
Tyrannosaurus?
Yeah. He did it like it's the best impersonation of that, but he ends up throwing it like under the car and no one sees it. And then it was like, fuck. So we kept driving and we had this big, long, convoy of vehicles, but we kind of just surrounded the house just to try to make sense so everyone would know which house it was, and we had the ability to do it.
Yeah.
So it was basically shithouse luck that we did it that way. But most of our stuff was kind of just on the fly, very time sensitive.
Yeah. Is there a weirdest thing that you encountered inside target houses? Like something that was just totally unexpected?
Weirdest thing inside, some of the paintings that the Iraqis had kind of made me feel a little weird, because they had like these really, I don't know if it was a painting or some kind of picture, but they would have like these real formal type pictures where they're wearing their best little Iraqi clothes and stuff like that. And we would see like these paintings or these pictures. That always kind of was like, man, that's kind of a weird culture type thing. In some of the places they would have those. Yeah. But I do recall that always kind of being like a little weird.
Yeah. Anything, I guess, activity wise that was strange, like walking into some, I don't know, fucking some weird orgy or fucking Satan worshiping cult meeting or anything weird like that? Or was it all usually just random?
Yeah, it was
mundane day-to-day shit happening.
Yeah. It was nothing. I don't recall seeing anything super bizarre. The standard stuff would be, you'd have a collection of weapons, or they'd have some stuff in the trunk or whatever. Yeah. But nothing super weird.
Nothing like out of Pulp Fiction or anything.
Yeah. Nothing like that, man. Thank goodness,
in the basement.
Yeah.
Did you guys use dogs at all?
I don't think we did use dogs in 06. My 07 rotation, they used dogs a lot, but 06, not so much.
Yeah. All right. So you wrapped that deployment up. It sounds pretty busy. You guys got a lot of good work in, and it was kind of more what you were expecting and hoping for, on the previous two. You get back from that one and you went on another one?
Yeah.
Was the next one your last combat deployment?
Yeah. 2007 was my very last combat deployment for sure.
Were you in the same leadership role?
Yeah, it was still team sergeant. We just had a different mission. Fortunately, we turned things around from the start, like just the absolute fuck up that we had to start in January of 06. And then we ended in August 06 as one of the more successful teams. We were one of the most decorated teams at that time in 10 Special Forces Group. We had a few Bronze Star with Valor devices for the guys. I think we had an RCOM or two with Valor. So we were one of the more decorated teams. We were recognized as the best team in 10 Special Forces Group by the leadership. which is quite an honor and a privilege to be recognized. One of 50 or 60 Special Forces ODAs in Operational Detachment Alpha, an A team. So that was quite an honor. And because that we did so well and we turned it around, we were basically the main effort. We were basically the main effort for the 2007 rotation. So they gave us the ISOF Recce mission, and that's the Iraqi Special Operations Forces, to include Iraqi counterterrorism forces, and the Iraqi, to include ISOF, Iraqi Special Ops Forces. And they were basically like the action arms. Those were the guys that were going out and hitting all the targets, and we were doing all the intel for those targets. Yeah. And it went from us having like this little, hey, you guys have Adamiyah, the last Sunni stronghold in Baghdad. That's your area. Go fucking make it awesome. Do what you can to impact it. So it went from having that little small area to you have the whole country of Iraq that you can reach out and touch, because we had just a prolific human intelligence network of guys that could just reach out and touch everything. And, as like in 2006, we kind of had to beg, borrow, and steal, because we didn't have enough ass, as a special forces team to go out and execute our targets. So we'd have to beg, borrow, and steal. Hey, can we use this? Or, hey, what are you guys doing tonight? You got some guys that can come out and hit this target with us. But in 2007, we had everything. We had every asset that you could ask for. Helicopters was still kind of a big deal then, but we had an action arm. So if we had a good target and we had dual source information, which, was coming from at least 2 or 3 different folks, then we could go hit it.
Yeah. Were you guys doing any of the actions at the objective door kicking, or was it all auxiliary to the ISOF guys?
Yeah. We weren't doing like us. We weren't doing any door kicking because we had professional dudes that was doing that. Yeah. What we did typically, if we were on target, it was like we would be on target with our Iraqi counterpart that was giving us the intel. Yeah. And of course, we protected their identity and all those type of things, but we would be there basically to identify that's him. That's not. Yeah. We'd do that type of thing.
Dog wise, any good dog stories?
No good dog stories. I know that they did, the ISOF and ICTF guys, they typically went out with dogs. I've heard a few good dog stories where the dogs would just eat up some people that wouldn't comply or would squirt or whatever. But I never got to see that personally. Yeah. I would love to hear a good dog story from you, though.
I've got a million of them, but
a million of them.
Well, there's so many of them have already been told by either other people or recollections of stories that I've heard. But this is about you, not about me, right? So,
I know it's a tremendous asset, though.
For sure. So as that deployment wrapped up, did you know at that point that you wanted to get out?
That what?
That you wanted to exit the military?
No, I didn't. And that's something that probably not a lot of people know about me is, because I was finishing up my team sergeant rotation, so 2007 was going to be it for me as an E8. I had 2.5 years as a team sergeant. And man, to be so fortunate to lead 2 special forces teams into combat, it's like, the pinnacle in my mind, the pinnacle of a Green Beret is to lead a special forces team. And then it's like, okay, well, there is a higher step than just leading a special forces team. And that would be leading a special forces team in combat. Yeah. And I got to do that twice, and I got to do that in Baghdad. So at the time, I was still switched on, and I thought like, okay, I'm not going to be able to be a team sergeant, all the cool operational shit. It's time for me to kind of pay back and do instructor or staff. But in the back of my mind, I thought, well, maybe it's not the pinnacle, but maybe being a special forces sergeant major and lead a company, even though it's more administrative and kind of oversight, it's not day-to-day ops. Maybe that's what'll be next for me. But something that a lot of people that don't know about me and they don't know about my career is once I came back from that 07 rotation, I got custody of my son. And I was divorced at the time. And I ended up getting remarried. And then I went to North Carolina and I was an instructor. I was non-deployable. You know, I was out of the game, if you will. And I had a regular job and all that. And then I got custody of my daughter. And then I got divorced again. Not to get too much into drama here, but I got divorced again. And then I was a no shit single dad, with a son in middle school and a daughter in elementary school. Wow. And I was at Fort Bragg. And, one of the things that I'm so grateful for from the Army and the Special Operations Command is they let me be a single dad and they let me raise my kids.
Wow. Yeah, that's powerful.
Yeah.
Again, not to get too far in the weeds, but was it a extreme circumstance that led to you getting custody of them?
Yeah, it was. It was an extreme circumstance.
It's typically pretty rare that a active duty guy would say, you know, that a judge or a court of any kind, like I can only imagine it would have had to have been significant.
Yeah, and it was extreme. It was an extreme case. If you don't mind, I'd rather kind of push that one off. But it was an extreme case. And when I first got custody of my son, it kind of broke my heart. It did break my heart. It didn't kind of break my heart because it broke my heart because, you know, the thing that remained, even though that I'd went through a divorce and was separated and all that, was my son and daughter were at least together.
Yeah.
And then it came to a point where it's like, okay, well, they're not together anymore. And I have my son now. And that was toward the end of my time in Fort Carson, Colorado. I was getting ready to go to Fort Bragg to be an instructor. And that broke my heart because it's like those two were now separated and they're young kids. And I remember exactly what you just said. I remember talking to my lawyer and I was like, hey, I have custody of my son. It's legal. It's official. I was like, I'd love to get custody of my daughter. I mean, because my son and daughter, I mean, they've always been together and now they're separated and that's not fair. And he's like, dude, it's fucking impossible. I mean, this was a really extreme situation, but like, I need something more. Like, you're still in 10th group. You're still operational. Like if your situation changed and maybe you weren't, you know, on the slate to go back to Iraq or somewhere else, then maybe we could talk about it.
I mean, not to make this about divorce court, but it seems odd to me that they would consider it a case extreme enough to say you get full custody of your son, but not your daughter. Like, why would they do one and not the other?
Yeah, I think that was just the circumstance for that particular incident. It sounds a little tricky, but that was just that circumstance.
Okay.
And then it wasn't that much longer once I got to North Carolina that I was able to get custody of my daughter.
Was there any awkwardness with you having been so less present in their life up until that point to where now all of a sudden you have both of them? Or like, was it like reuniting, or was it tough?
It was tough, dude.
Was there a little bit of like, who the fuck are you and what's going on?
Yeah, it was tough. You know, it's funny that we're talking about this right now. Well, it's not funny, but it's interesting that we're talking about this because I just did a book event down in St. Pete, Florida. And there were several people that was there. And this retired general asked a question because we did kind of like a mini fireside chat. And people could ask questions about the book and stuff like that. And this retired general was like, hey, can you just tell all the people here how important the family structure is and how important the family is to allow us to go and do our thing and all that type of stuff. He asked this question and I was like, well, that is super important. The families play a huge role. And you're right. If it wasn't for them, it would be really hard for us to do. And I was like, I learned this later on when I became a single dad, that was harder shit than anything I did in Baghdad. Cause I was trained, I was ready. Yeah. You know, I had my boys but being a single dad, and it's like, okay, well, I need to take my daughter to gymnastics. I need to somehow pick her up, make sure my son gets to wrestling or football, and what kind of dinner are they going to eat? You know, I was like, that's hard. And then I had some lady that came up to me afterwards and she said, it's interesting because in Grit to Glory, you talk about your kids, but you never talk about a wife or an ex-wife or anything. And I just wanted to take the high road on that. I didn't want to get into the weeds with anything like that.
Yeah, it's nothing productive.
But yeah, it was tough, man. It was tough to be a single dad, and I had nothing but respect for the spouses that take care of the kids and things like that. And it was a whole learning process too. And thank goodness I had a really solid neighbor, the Welliver, Steve and Denise Welliver, that helped me with the kids from time to time. But man, it was tough.
Yeah. Did you have any Mr. Mom moments where you're ironing a grilled cheese or stapling a fucking blanket back together, anything like that?
I had a few, speaking of the Wellivers, because they're my dear friends, and I have a lot of, respect and love for them. But Denise is a Green Berets wife, and her husband, Steve, retired as an officer out of 3rd Special Forces Group. And I think I had like one of those type of moments where we're watching soccer and I'm there basically with a lot of moms and I'm the dad. And I'm still a Green Beret, like I'm still active duty, but I'm not doing Green Beret shit. I'm doing instructor and staff stuff.
Yeah.
Compared to like what Steve was doing.
Operating.
Yeah, he was operating. Yeah. He was in Afghanistan and shit. And I'm sitting there with Denise and she's telling me like, man, I miss Steve so much. And, he's been gone now for 2 months and I hadn't heard, and I'm just like, God damn.
Yeah.
Like this is different. Yeah. So yeah, I did have a couple of those moments.
Yeah. The honorary soccer mom.
Yeah.
That's wild. So I assume then with full custody, it's kind of the writing's on the wall. You can't deploy anymore. You have to stick to kind of the staff gig. What was the rest of your time in like? Was it staying there and then? Yeah,
they let me stay there. And to be honest, Mike, that hurt a little bit. And I wasn't able to process it because all I knew was, Iraq and combat deployments and getting a taste of success.
Yeah.
And it was kind of like really addictive. And it was like, man, my career, and I was selfish. And it was me. And it was really tough to go through that. And there were times when I kind of went back and forth. It was like, fuck, man. I pretty much knew my career was over when, and I'm not trying to say this in a negative way, but like toward my kids, but I knew like, okay, my career's over.
Yeah.
I will never go to Afghanistan or I'll never go back to Iraq or Syria or wherever, I'm done. And I had to try to like figure that out at the time. Like, and then fortunately, I was like, fuck, man, I'm so proud that I did this.
Yeah.
Like, and I'm just grateful that the military allowed me to do it. But I did 4 years as an instructor at the schoolhouse, where Green Berets went through and they got like their professional development, which is what I was doing on 9/11. I got to do that for 4 years as an instructor. And then I did 4 more years staff time. And I mean, those are jobs that nobody wants to do. I had to do them. And I was grateful for my command for letting me to do it. And then I realized like, hey, man, that's probably one of the most important things that I've done in my life. It's the, the legacy for my kids. And it was actually Steve Welliver at my going away party that said this, that really like made it hit home for me, because all the guys were getting up and they're talking about, hey man, in 2006 and we were doing this and doing that, like all cool guy shit. And Steve Welliver stood up at my retirement dinner, wasn't scheduled to speak, but he said, hey, I'd just like to say a couple things. It's like, hey, I didn't see Darrell operational. Like we weren't, we didn't serve together. We weren't in Iraq together, but this is what I saw from Darrell. I saw from Darrell being a good dad and raising his son and his daughter and doing great dad shit. And I think that's something that we can't leave here without talking about. Like, wow. That's fucking important. And that hit me in the heart so heavy, man. And then it kind of like, man, that I did do a good job there, good job.
Yeah, that's amazing. That's I would imagine there'd be a lot of emotion here and that, in an unexpected public environment like that.
Yeah.
Did you ever find yourself at first, when you kind of came to the realization that your warfighting days were over because of the situation you found yourself in, that you held any resentment towards your kids, even if it was almost subconscious?
I think there probably was a little bit subconscious, like, fuck,
At first.
man. Yeah. And I think I just needed to deal with it and work through it. And I'm so glad I did, because my kids are great. My son's doing great. My daughter's doing great. You know, a lot of people are like, man, you did a good job with them. You got 2 good kids there. And that makes me so proud.
Yeah. I think as a parent, one of, if not the greatest compliment you can get is when somebody who's never met them or interacted with them does, and their takeaway is like, somebody did a good job with them, you know, or you know, they were raised right.
Oh, yeah.
You know, like, because to me, it's like good grades, athleticism, whatever, like those are nice, you know, but having a compliment like that, I think is about as good as it gets, you know.
I agree with that, man, for sure.
Was there a takeaway, like a biggest takeaway that you gathered that maybe you didn't expect, or that kind of hit you like a light switch moment as a dad, and kind of doing it on your own that way?
A takeaway as far as,
Just really anything. Like, you know, was there like a lesson learned? I mean, almost the same way you would hot wash an operation, like looking back on that whole path of unexpectedly, you know, getting custody of them, and now, you know, operationally getting put on the back burner. Was there one single thing that you gleaned from that is either a mantra or, you know, something that you would pass on?
Yeah, I would say take it day by day and do your best to enjoy some of those moments. And now I'm looking at my son, and he's married, and he's got a little baby girl.
Oh, wow.
You know, and I'm seeing how great he is as a dad, and how great his wife is as a mom, and how they look as a family, and it's so special and all that. And it's just like, man, enjoy those days. And I think I learned this eventually. At first it was kind of like, man, this is tough. It's kicking my ass. Yeah. Like, I still have to work. I still have to produce and still have to get a paycheck, but I still need to make sure my kids are straight. And then I eventually realized that, like, man, you got to enjoy all those days and those moments, because they grow up like that. You probably know.
Oh, yeah.
They grow up so fast. And I have a picture in the book. It's like me and my daughter, you know, she's like in my arms, and she's just a little girl, and her legs are kind of like kicked off to the side. And then, last year or the year before, actually, I'm walking her down the aisle, and she's getting married. And it's like, holy shit.
Yeah.
You know, it's crazy, man.
Yeah, it goes so fast, man.
It does.
What's weird is everybody tells you that, you know, when they're toddlers and they're wearing your ass out, and
yeah, and you kind of like,
the guy 10 or 15 years older that's been through that, you know, kind of taps you on the shoulder and is like, enjoy that shit, because it's gonna. You're like, yeah, fuck you.
Yeah,
you know, it's like, I just wish they'd wipe their own ass for it, you know, or whatever.
Yeah.
But it's like you wake up one day and you find yourself in that guy's position of looking back and be like, man, where did the time go? You know, because
that's true.
You know, 5 years at our age, or just even as an adult, you know, while it's a significant amount of time, when you look at the change, there's usually not drastic change. I mean, sometimes there is, but, you know, say 40 to 45 or 45 to 50, 35 to 40, whatever. But, you know, 12 to 17 in a kid's life, like the change that a child goes through, like if you look at them as a 12-year-old and then now 5 years later they're at 17, like that change is like, it's hard to even understand. You know, it's like they go from being little children to being fucking adults, basically, you know, and it's just like that rapid growth and movement towards getting out of the house and whatever. It goes by in the blink of an eye, and they just change so much in that period, you know?
Yeah. They sure do, man.
I think that's the thing, is just, you know, it's like dog years almost, you know, it's like, from the time they're 3 until 17, every 5-year period, you know, goes by like that. But man, for them, it's just, they're not even recognizable, you know?
Yeah, for sure.
During that, from the time that they got custody and the entire time that you had them as a single dad, did they maintain, and if you don't want to answer, obviously tell me to fuck off, but Did they maintain any relationship with their mom?
Yeah. That was part of the whole, court thing that they still had to maintain a relationship. And, she was in West Virginia. My ex-wife was in West Virginia. So we would typically do like a halfway point, which was in Wytheville, Virginia. Or sometimes I would just go ahead and go back and drive them all the way back to Huntington, West Virginia. But they did maintain their relationship with their mom, and they have a solid relationship now. So that's it's all good now.
Are you remarried?
Yes, I am remarried.
Third time's a charm.
Third time is a charm. It just took me a few times, to figure it out. But third time.
It up. So now you have, you're part of the Medal of Honor.
I was.
Oh, you were? Okay.
I was, yeah.
So
I'm
what
not
are
there
you doing
anymore. Right now, I'm focused heavy on the book.
Yeah.
Doing a lot of marketing and promoting and doing some book events. I just came back from that one that was really successful in Florida.
Yeah.
Getting ready to go to New York with my co-author, Lauren Gowdy.
Yeah.
Hopefully we get a chance to talk about her a little bit.
Yeah.
But we're going to be in New York the 26th to the 30th.
Oh, nice.
And dude, we have some really cool events set up. We're going to, we get to do something with the Merchant Marine Academy, which I didn't know much about. The U.S. Merchant Marine Academy is basically kind of like a Naval Academy, West Point type thing. I didn't know Merchant Marine Academy. So we're going to do something with Merchant Marine Academy. We're going to do like a fireside chat, Lauren and I. And then we're going to give out some books to the midshipmen is what they're called.
Yeah.
And do like a little fireside chat. And then we're going to do some stuff with the Port Authority Police Department.
Oh, nice.
We're going to visit the fire station that was hit the hardest on 9/11. I think they lost 15 firefighters on 9/11. So Lauren and I get a chance to go over there and spend some time with the firefighters.
That would be neat.
Give out some of the books of Grit to Glory. And we're doing this in conjunction with the Wounded Warrior Project. So that should be a pretty cool time. We're going to spend some time with NYPD. And we have an event at the New York Athletic Club.
Oh, wow.
That's going to also be time spent with NYPD and some of the veterans from American Legion. I think it's 460 possibly. But yeah, man, it's just going to be an awesome event in New York. And I'm so happy to spend some time with Lauren because, the book was published. It went live on December 3rd, 2024.
Yeah.
So Lauren and I haven't really had a chance to do anything together. She lives a little far.
Yeah.
But she's coming in to do the New York with me. And I'm just so happy to see her because the feedback that I've gotten from the book, man, it's been amazing. People are really pleased with it.
Yeah. Well, that's awesome to hear.
Yeah.
I wanted to ask you a little bit about kind of some of the current events going on with, kind of from the election and the lead up to it and things that have happened subsequently. I guess first, are you in contact with any guys that are still on active duty that you served with, or are they?
A few, not very many.
Yeah. I guess I'm just curious if you've talked to them at all or had any conversations about kind of new battlefield technology, AI drones, hacking, kind of the moving into the future of what global terrorism and global anti-terrorism operations look like for American Special Forces. Now, have you guys had any?
No, I haven't had any of those discussions. I guess I've followed it a little bit from like the outside looking in. Like I'm seeing just a little bit of like all the drone technology that's going on in Russia and Ukraine. It's like, holy shit, bro.
To me, that's the most frightening, and there's quite a bit of really remarkable footage from Israel and in the West Bank, drone footage of seeing flying through buildings, not just
crazy.
Because we used drones a little bit in Iraq. I don't know if you guys did. We had a drone.
We had a Raven.
Oh, okay.
That's how old.
Well, yeah, but it was very elementary by comparison. We had a guy who launched it from a Humvee, and it was amazing at the time, in that we've got eyes in the sky, a couple 100 feet up, a few 100 yards ahead, with a dude with a screen in our Humvee fucking saying, "Hey, go left," or "Hey, there's a group up." It wasn't even fair, the advantage that gives you. And I remember we were in Nasiriyah the first time we ever used it, and of course they had never seen it. What was funny now looking back on it, and even kind of was then, was they didn't realize that it was a drone, because a drone this size at 200 feet looks like a real airplane higher up. So they're shooting at it thinking that it's, a fighter jet or they didn't know what the fuck, so they're totally distracted shooting at this fucking drone up in this, and then we roll up and catch them with their pants down, but thinking about that, it's over 20 years ago now, to what they're doing with them now, dropping grenades. And
It's
it's
crazy.
just, it really kind of almost gives you that window look into the realistic version of Terminator 2 in a way. And that, like, some of these drones, and if you think about the advancement of the technology with them, like what it's going to be 5 years, 10 years, 20 years from now, it's kind of fucking frightening.
Yeah.
The warfighting textbook is kind of being rewritten.
They're going to have to rewrite it.
Yeah, it's wild. Any thoughts on any of that kind of stuff?
Yeah, I think it's definitely going to change everything. I mean, just if you look at like our footprint from GWAT with these big ass bases that we had, and people in the rear, it's just like, man, how's that going to look going forward? Like, it changes everything. And I do think that I think there's a lot of people that are probably in the military, like some of the younger folks are like, man, we missed out. Like, we missed GWAT, like kind of like what we thought was going to happen early on.
I don't think it's
gonna
going
miss it.
anywhere.
Yeah, I don't think so either. But I think what they're going to have to deal with going forward is going to be so sophisticated, and the technology is going to be on such a different playing field. Like, man, they're going to have to be sharp on a lot of different things, and we need to make sure that they're going to be ready for it.
Yeah. To me, it's exceptionally, I hate to use the word scary. It's not scary, but it's alarming, I guess. When you start throwing satellites and space weapons, which are a real thing, massive lasers being shot from satellites is a realistic technology now. That, as well as, the cyber, whether it's hacker type attacks or jamming capabilities, disabling satellites, things like that, with the stroke of a key, can wipe out your entire ability to communicate, navigate. There's a lot of really big picture implications with our reliance on such technologically driven capabilities. And I think that's a mistake. It reminds me of, when we came in, you learned map and compass to navigate, and I know they still do, but, GPS wasn't really even a thing. They had them, but they didn't work well enough and weren't, like, we didn't use
big, clunky, boxy.
We didn't use them at first, And I think, especially with a GPS, because it's like if you're so reliant on that, where you have the blinders on and really all you're focusing on is turn left, turn right, this many yards up ahead, whatever, like, you don't really have that grand scope, 30,000 foot view picture of cardinal directions and, where things are in relation to whatever. It's no different than navigating around town. Like, if you go to a new city or whatever and just like, fuck, I don't know if I'm going the right way or not. I'm just following the GPS. Like, that's a bad spot to be in when you're fighting a war.
Yeah, I agree.
And I do worry that as a nation, we're too reliant on technology that way. Any thoughts on that?
Yeah, I agree. I think just too, like with people with the cell phones, the way that we came in and that wasn't even a big deal. It wasn't a big issue. And now it's like, hey, we got to tell people hey, you can't take your cell phone with you to the theater, to war or whatever. It's just like, wow, man, it's a whole different generation. But I definitely share some of those concerns. And I'm not a huge technology guy or a huge drone guy. I know there's a lot out there that are really fascinated and interested in that type of stuff. But I'm with you, man. I think it's definitely something we got to take a look at, and it's going to be difficult, I think, to deal with.
Yeah. Beyond the book, what do you want to do with the rest of your life?
Well, I'm hoping the book does kind of help set some things up, like speaking engagement wise. And I feel a little bit weird to even say this because I'm naturally an introvert. I just would rather be the quiet guy that, doesn't want to bother anybody else. Don't bother me. I'll just kind of sit over here and not talk about anything. But I got a little bit of a taste of it when I was the chief of ops at the National Medal of Honor Museum Foundation. And I worked there from February 2022 to last year, 2.5 years. And part of my role as the chief of ops was to go out and talk about the museum or talk about the recipients, talk about some of the initiatives, talk about building the museum and when it's going to be open and all those type of things. And they're building the museum in Arlington, Texas. It'll open March 25th, 2025. But in that capacity, I got a little bit of a taste of, hey, go to the Daughters of the American Revolution, go to the VFW, go to the Chambers of Commerce and talk about it.
Yeah.
And I kind of had to come out of my shell a little bit and not be such an introvert and actually talk.
Yeah.
And then I was like, well, this is a little bit refreshing. Like I enjoy this and I feel like I have something that I can share. And I did serve 26.5 years and I feel I could talk to some of the recipients. And, I'm not obviously a Medal of Honor recipient, but I feel like I can carry their message and talk about the values and things like that. So I kind of enjoyed that. And I was like, hey, I can make an impact. And then with the book and sharing some of the stories and getting some of the feedback, one of the small little pieces of feedback that I've received from someone, I was like, man, you talk about don't quit, work hard, be humble, all those type of things. And got some feedback. It was like, hey, this person was having a bad day. They were having a tough time. And just hearing about, hey, don't quit, keep plugging along, stay in the fight. You probably hear this a lot from your podcast listeners out there. And it's making a huge difference, man. That's an impact. And so I got a little taste of that. And I would like to start doing that. I'd like to start doing some more on the leadership resilience side, just share some of the stories that I have. Not just Green Beret. A lot of people like to hear the Green Beret stuff, but I also got some experience, on the chief of ops side at a very high level with some very influential people and some high level folks. So I would just kind of like to share a little bit, of those stories.
Yeah, no, that's great. I think it's awesome.
If
you had to reduce it down to one single piece of advice for the next generation, whether it's warfighter or just our society, what would it be?
It's a great one. And I'm getting ready to speak at a high school. I forgot which one. It's one of the high schools in Dallas. And I was talking to the teacher and I said, hey, I just want to make sure I meet your expectations when I'm going to talk a little bit about what I did in the military and, serving as a Green Beret and talk a little bit about Iraq and all that. But my main theme is going to be this, and I want to make sure you're good with it. And I told her this. It's like, work hard, be humble, don't quit. Those are like the 3 key things that I feel like that I've used in my life from humble beginnings in West Virginia all the way up until now that has really just, helped me be somewhat successful.
Yeah.
I certainly not arrived and it's like, man, I'm the guy or anything like that. But those 3 very simple things, work hard, be humble, don't quit, I think have served me well. And I think that's a great message for the next generation. A lot of the next generation are kind of consumed or bought into like the instant, I want it now.
Yeah.
If I don't get it now, I'm pissed or whatever. But that's not really how life works sometimes, as you and I both know.
Oh, yeah. They want the instant gratification.
Instant gratification.
The prime shipping overnight delivery.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. All right. So in keeping in tradition with mic drop sentimental traditions, I guess, I've got actually a 2-for-1 for you today. I'll start by saying a big shout out and thanks to John Johnston, big supporter of the show out in California. One of these gifts, actually both of the gifts, he took care of and designed and made it all happen through Champion Choice Silver, who made them. But he designed one that's specific to you and your background that I think you'll really enjoy, and then a coin as well. So,
oh wow!
Just give you the handshake since there's too much shit to hand you. But
I appreciate it. Can I check it out now?
Please do, yeah. And if you could show the camera the bigger black boxes, if you would.
Okay, yeah. So it's a awesome little coin here.
Yeah.
Oh wow!
Good old mic drop.
Mic drop coin. I love it. Thank you.
Yeah,
appreciate that, brother.
Absolutely.
And then let's see what we got here. We got 2 boxes. Champion's Choice Silver. Look at that belt buckle there. I do not have one of these.
Yeah, so this is the mic drop buckle to commemorate your time on the show, which only guests get. So it's pretty.
Man, I got to get a belt and get ready to get something like this. You know, I'm in Texas.
Yeah, especially being by the stockyards, right?
Yeah,
Or
yeah.
Not too far from.
I would like to get my belt and take a picture, and I'll be able to.
That would be awesome.
Yeah,
That'd
send
be
that with you guys.
And this one is specific to you and your background, which again,
Oh gosh, man.
he designed the whole thing and made it. So big thanks to John Johnson.
John Johnson, thank you so much.
Yeah, yeah. So
United
I don't know if
States
you can kind of show it to
Forces.
the camera there, but
Yeah, look at that. That is
Yeah.
gorgeous.
yeah. So really well done and sentimental with such a unique background. So
Wow, thank you so much. I appreciate that. I do have a couple of small gifts for you as a token of my appreciation for allowing me to come on such a great podcast here. I got a coin first.
awesome. Appreciate it
Thank
very
you
much.
so much.
Yeah, thank
and
you.
then I got your own copy of Grit to Glory.
Awesome.
Darrell Utt,
Appreciate it.
Lauren and Gowdy, I
Yeah.
think you know. So
Yeah, I appreciate it.
I hope you
It's,
enjoy that.
Oh, it's awesome. Yeah, it's super cool. Thank you very much.
Yeah.
Good stuff. Anything else you want to mention before we wrap up?
But I think we got to cover everything. I would like to give Lauren a shout out. She did such a great job,
Yeah.
being the co-author, and I got introduced to her.
Yeah,
And-
so many good interviews have come on the show, thanks to her. And
Yeah,
working
and she
with
got
some
us
guys.
linked up.
Yeah, so appreciate it.
So yeah, she did an awesome job, and I'm very thankful for everything she did for the book.
Yeah,
So
awesome.
she was great, and I would strongly recommend her to other special operators out there that are considering writing a story. To maybe send her an email, give her a call.
Yeah, absolutely. To the listener, well, first, thank you again for taking the time.
Yeah, it's a
out and sharing
privilege.
your
Thank
story.
you.
Yeah, I really appreciate it. To the listener, I hope you enjoyed Darrell's story. I know I did. I think these types of lessons, especially the fatherhood stuff, in the second half of the interview is so very important for, I think, everybody to understand, kind of what it takes to go through that and the impacts that it has, and how difficult it is for the spouses back home doing that for the operators, because it's something that I think gets overlooked a lot. And, it's certainly no less hard on them. There's certainly ways that it's even harder, I would argue. So thank you to all the spouses who support their guys going overseas and doing what they love to do, because I know that's a tough job. So, but thank you to everybody for your support. If I didn't have it, or if we didn't have it, we wouldn't be able to bring you stories such as Darrell. So again, thank you from the bottom of my heart that you guys continue to tune in show after show. It's an honor to be able to sit here and do it. So thank you to you guys. Hope you enjoyed it. If you didn't, you can choke yourself. And until next time, this is Mic Drop.